Section 41 of Common Sense in the Household. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Marianne. Common Sense in the Household, a Manual of Practical Housewifery by Marion Harland. Puddings, Part 2. Cottage pudding. 1 cup of sugar, 1 tablespoonful of butter, 2 eggs, 1 cup sweet milk, 3 cups flour, or enough to make a tolerably stiff batter, 1/2 teaspoonful of soda, 1 teaspoonful cream of tartar sifted with the flour, 1 teaspoonful salt. Rub the butter and sugar together. Beat in the yolks, then the milk and soda, the salt, and the beaten whites, alternately with the flour. Bake in a buttered mold. Turn out upon a dish, cut in slices, and eat with liquid sauce. This is a simple but very nice pudding. German puffs. 3 cups flour, 3 cups milk, 3 eggs, whites and yolks beaten separately and very light, 3 teaspoonfuls melted butter, 1 saltspoonful salt. Pour in 9 well-battered cups of same size as that used for measuring, and bake to a fine brown. Eat as soon as done with sauce. Cup puddings. 4 eggs, the weight of the eggs in sugar and in flour, half their weight in butter, 2 tablespoonsful milk, 1/4 teaspoonful soda dissolved in hot water. Rub the sugar and butter together. Beat the yolks light, and add then the milk and soda, lastly the flour and beaten whites alternately. Fill 6 small cups well buttered and bake 20 minutes, or until a nice brown. Eat warm. Lemon pudding. 1 cup of sugar, 4 eggs, 2 tablespoonfuls cornstarch, 2 lemons, juice of both and rind of 1 pint milk, 1 tablespoonful butter. Heat the milk to boiling and stir in the cornstarch, wet with a few spoonfuls of cold water. Boil 5 minutes, stirring constantly. While hot, mix in the butter and set it away to cool. Beat the yolks light and add the sugar, mixing very thoroughly before putting in the lemon juice and grated rind. Beat this to a stiff cream, and add gradually to the cornstarch milk when the latter is cold. Stir all smooth, put in a buttered dish, and bake. Eat cold. Lemon meringue pudding. Very nice. 1 quart milk, 2 cups breadcrumbs, 4 eggs, 1/2 cup butter, 1 cup white sugar, 1 large lemon, juice and half the rind, grated. Soak the bread in the milk, add the beaten yolks, with the butter and sugar rubbed to a cream, also the lemon. Bake in a buttered dish until firm and slightly brown. Draw to the door of the oven and cover with a meringue of the whites whipped to a froth with 3 tablespoonfuls of powdered sugar and a little lemon juice. Brown very slightly, sift powdered sugar over it, and eat cold. You may make an orange pudding in the same way. Cocoanut pudding. 1/2 pound grated cocoanut, 1/2 cup stale sponge cake crumbled fine, 1 cup sugar, 1 large cup rich milk, cream if you can get it, 6 eggs, 2 tablespoonsful vanilla or rose water. Cream the butter and sugar and add the beaten yolks. When these are well mixed, put in the cocoanut, stir well before adding the milk, cake crumbs, flavoring, and lastly the whites of 3 eggs. Whip the other whites stiff with 3 tablespoonsful of powdered sugar. Flavor with vanilla, and just before taking the pudding from the oven, spread this meringue over the top and close the oven until the icing is slightly browned. Bake in all 3/4 of an hour. Orange marmalade pudding. 1 cup fine breadcrumbs, 1/2 cup sugar, 1 cup milk or cream, 4 eggs, 2 tablespoonsful butter, 1 cup orange or other sweet marmalade. Rub the butter and sugar together, add the yolks well beaten, the milk, breadcrumbs, and the whites whipped to a froth. Put a layer of this in the bottom of a well-buttered mold, spread thickly with some pretty stiff marmalade, orange is nicest, then another layer of the mixture, and so on until the mold is full, having the custard mixture at top. Bake in a moderate oven about an hour. Turn out of the mold upon a dish and serve with sweetened cream or custard. Macaroni pudding. 1 cup macaroni broken into inch lengths, 1 quart milk, 4 eggs, 1/2 lemon, juice and grated peel, 2 tablespoonsful butter, 3/4 cup sugar. Simmer the macaroni in half the milk until tender. While hot, stir in the butter, the yolks, well beaten up with the sugar, the lemon, and lastly the whipped whites. Bake in a buttered mold about half an hour until nicely browned. Vermicelli pudding may be made according to the foregoing receipt. Neapolitan pudding, very fine. 1 large cup fine breadcrumbs soaked in milk, 3/4 cup sugar, 1 lemon, juice and grated rind, 6 eggs, 1/2 pound stale sponge cake, 1/2 pound macaroons, almond, 1/2 cup jelly or jam, and 1 small tumbler of sherry wine, 1/2 cup milk poured upon the breadcrumbs, 1 tablespoonful melted butter. Rub the butter and sugar together. Put the beaten yolks in next, then the soaked breadcrumbs, the lemon juice, and rind, and beat to a smooth, light paste before adding the whites. Butter your mold very well, and put in the bottom a light layer of dry breadcrumbs. Upon this one of macaroons, laid evenly and closely together. Wet this with wine and cover with a layer of the mixture, then with slices of sponge cake, spread thickly with jelly or jam. Next macaroons, wet with wine, more custard, sponge cake, and jam, and so on until the mold is full, putting a layer of the mixture at the top. Cover closely and steam in the oven 3/4 of an hour, then remove the cover and brown the top. Turn out carefully into a dish, and pour over it a sauce made of currant jelly warmed, and beaten up with 2 tablespoonfuls melted butter and a glass of pale sherry. A plain round mold is best for the pudding, as much of its comeliness depends upon the manner in which the cake and macaroons are fitted in. It is a pretty and good pudding, and will well repay the trifling trouble and care required to manage it properly. It is also nice boiled in a buttered mold. Rhubarb pudding. Prepare the stalks as for pies. Cover the bottom of a buttered pudding dish with slices of bread and butter. Cover with the rhubarb cut into short pieces. Sprinkle abundantly with sugar, then put on another layer of bread and butter, and so on until your dish is full. Cover and steam, while baking, for half an hour. Remove the lid and bake 10 minutes or until browned. Eat with hot sauce. Gooseberry pudding. 1 pint ripe or nearly ripe gooseberries, 6 or 8 slices toasted stale bread, 1 cup milk, 1/2 cup sugar, 1 tablespoonful butter, melted. Stew the gooseberries 10 minutes, very slowly, not to break them. Cut your slices of bread to fit your pudding dish, and toast to a light brown on both sides. Cut off all the crust before toasting. Dip each slice, while hot, in milk, and spread with the melted butter. Cover the bottom of the dish with them. Put next a layer of the gooseberries, sprinkled thickly with sugar, more toast, more berries, and so on until the dish is full. Cover closely and steam in a moderate oven 20 or 25 minutes. Turn out upon a hot dish and pour over it a good pudding sauce. This is considered a wholesome breakfast dish, and is certainly good. In this case omit the sauce, sift powdered sugar over the top, and eat with the same. Newark pudding. 1 cup fine breadcrumbs soaked in a pint of the milk. 1 quart of milk. 5 eggs. 2 tablespoonsful rice flour. 1/2 pound raisins, seeded, cut in two and dredged with flour. Vanilla or bitter almond extract. 2 tablespoonsful melted butter, and a half teaspoonful soda. Beat the yolks light, add the soaked breadcrumbs and milk, stir to a smooth batter, and put in the rice flour. Wet up first with cold milk. The reserved pint of milk, the seasoning, butter, the fruit, lastly the whites whipped stiff. Bake an hour in a buttered mold. Turn out and pour sauce over it, serving hard sauce also with it. Or, you may boil the mixture 2 hours in a floured cloth or buttered mold. Baked plum pudding. 1 1/4 pound of flour, 1 pound raisins, seeded, cut in two, and dredged with flour. 1/2 pound suet, freed from strings and powdered. 1 cup sugar. 2 ounces citron, shredded fine. 5 eggs, whites and yolks beaten separately. Nutmeg, cinnamon, and cloves, 1 teaspoonful each. Milk to make a thick batter of the flour. Begin with 2 cups, and add more, if necessary. Beat the yolks and sugar together. Add the suet and spice, then the flour, moistening the mixture gradually with milk until you can move the spoon in it. Dredge the fruit and put it in by degrees. Finally stir in the beaten whites. Beat all very hard and long before baking in a buttered mold. It will require at least an hour and a half in a moderate oven. Turn out and eat with rich sweet sauce. Bell's Dumplings. 1 quart prepared flour. 2 1/2 tablespoonsful lard and butter mixed. 2 cups of milk, or enough to make a soft dough. Roll out 1/4 of an inch thick. Cut into oblong pieces, rounded at the corners. Put a great spoonful damson, cherry, or other tart preserve in the middle, and roll into a dumpling. Bake 3/4 of an hour. Brush over with beaten egg white while hot. Set back in the oven 3 minutes to glaze. Eat hot with brandy or wine sauce. Or you may make a roll pudding out of it by rolling out the paste into an oblong sheet, spreading thickly with the preserves, folding it up as one would a traveling shawl to be put into a strap, pinching the ends together so that the juice may not escape, and boiling in a floured cloth fitted to the shape of the roly-poly. Boil an hour and a half. Boiled puddings. You can boil puddings in a bowl, a mold, or a cloth. The mold should have a closely fitted top, and be buttered well, top and all, before the batter or dough is put in. These molds are usually made with hasps or other fastening. In lack of this, you had better tie down the cover securely. I once boiled a pudding in a tin pail, the top of which I made more secure by fitting it over a cloth floured on the inside, lest the pudding should stick. The experiment succeeded admirably, and I commend the suggestion to those who find, after the pudding is mixed, that their mold leaks, or the bowl that did duty as a substitute has been broken, and nothing said to the mistress about it. If you use a bowl, butter it, and tie a floured cloth tightly over the top. If a cloth, have it clean and sweet, and flour bountifully on the inside. In all, leave room for batter, bread, rice, and cracker puddings to swell. Tie the string very tightly about the mouth of the bag, which must be made with felled seams at sides and bottom, the better to exclude the water. The water must be boiling when the pudding goes in, and not stop boiling for 1 instant until it's done. If it is in a bag, this must be turned several times under water to prevent sticking or scorching to the sides of the pot. The bag must also be entirely covered, while the water should not quite reach the top of a mold. If you use a basin, dip the cloth in boiling water before dredging with flour on the inside. When the time is up, take mold, basin, or cloth from the boiling pot, and plunge instantly into cold water, then turn out without the loss of a second. This will prevent sticking, and leave a clearer impression of the mold upon the contents. Boiled puddings should be served as soon as they are done, as they soon become heavy. Many of the baked puddings I have described are quite as good boiled. As a safe rule, double the time of baking if you boil. Berry pudding. 1 pint of milk, 2 eggs, 1 saltspoonful salt, 1/4 teaspoonful soda dissolved in hot water, 1/2 teaspoonful cream tartar, sifted through a cup of flour and added to enough flour to make a thick batter. 1 pint blackberries, raspberries, currants, or huckleberries, well dredged with flour, stirred in at the last. Huckleberry pudding. 1 pint milk, 2 eggs, 1 quart flour, or enough for thick batter, 1 gill baker's yeast, 1 saltspoonful salt, 1 teaspoonful soda dissolved in boiling water, nearly a quart of berries, well dredged with flour. Make a batter of eggs, milk, flour, yeast, salt, and soda, and set it to rise in a warm place for about 4 hours. When you are ready to boil it, stir in the dredged fruit quickly and lightly. Boil in a buttered mold or floured cloth for 2 hours. This will be found lighter and more wholesome than boiled pastry. Eat hot with sweet sauce. Fruit valise pudding. 1 quart flour, 1 tablespoonful lard, and same of butter, 1 teaspoonful soda dissolved in hot water, 2 teaspoonful cream tartar sifted through the flour, 1 saltspoonful salt, 2 cups milk or enough to make the flour into soft dough, 1 quart berries, chopped apples, sliced peaches, or other fruit. Jam, preserves, canned fruit, or marmalade may be substituted for the berries. Roll out the crust less than half an inch thick, indeed a quarter of an inch will do, into an oblong sheet. Cover thickly with the fruit and sprinkle with sugar. Begin at one end and roll it up closely, the fruit inside. In putting this in, leave a narrow margin at the other end of the roll, which should be folded down closely like the flap of a pocketbook. Pinch the ends of the folded roll together to prevent the escape of the fruit, and baste up in a bag the same size and shape as the valise. Flour the bag well before putting in the pudding, having previously dipped it, the cloth, into hot water, and wring it out. Boil an hour and a half. Serve hot with sauce and cut crosswise in slices half an inch thick. Boiled apple dumplings, No. 1. Make a paste according to the above receipt, cut in squares, and put in the center of each an apple pared and cored. Bring the corners together, enclose each dumpling in a small square cloth, tied up bagwise, leaving room to swell. Each cloth should be dipped in hot water, wrung out, and floured on the inside before the apple is put in. Boil 1 hour. Apple dumplings, No. 2. 1 quart flour, 1/4 pound suet, 1 teaspoonful salt, 1/2 teaspoonful soda dissolved in hot water, 1 teaspoonful cream tartar sifted in the flour, cold water enough to make into a tolerably stiff paste. Roll out, cut into squares, put in the middle of each a fine juicy apple pared and cored. Fill the hole left by the core with marmalade or with sugar wet with lemon juice. Stick a clove in the sugar. Close the paste, tie up in the claws, when you have wet them with hot water and floured them, and boil 1 hour. A pleasing idea for dumpling claws is to crochet them in a close stitch with stout tidy cotton. They are easily done, wash and wear well, and leave a very pretty pattern upon the paste when they are opened. Crochet them round, with a cord for drawing run into the outer edge. Boiled fruit pudding. Prepare a paste in accordance with either of the foregoing receipts, but roll into one sheet. Lay apples, peaches, or berries in the center, paring and slicing the fruit. Sprinkle with sugar, and close the paste over them as you would a dumpling. Dip a stout cloth in hot water, flour the inside, put in the pudding, tie tightly, and boil 2 hours and a half. Eat with hot sauce. Rice dumplings. 1 pound rice boiled without stirring until soft and the top dry. 12 pippins pared and cored. Strawberry marmalade or crabapple jelly. Let the rice cool upon a sieve or coarse cloth that it may dry at the same time. Dip your dumpling claws in hot water, wring them out and flour well inside. Put a handful of the cold rice upon each, spreading it out into a smooth sheet. Lay in the center an apple, fill the hole left by the core with marmalade or jelly, draw up the cloth carefully to enclose the apple with a coating of rice, tie and boil 1 hour. Turn over with care, pour sweet sauce or rich sweetened cream over them, and send around more in a boat with them. Suet dumplings, plain. 2 cups fine breadcrumbs soaked in a very little milk. 1 cup beef suet, freed from strings and powdered. 4 eggs, whites and yolks separated and beaten very light. 1 tablespoonful sugar. 1 teaspoonful cream tartar sifted into the flour. 1/2 teaspoonful soda dissolved in boiling water. 1 teaspoonful salt. Enough milk to mix into a stiff paste. Make into large balls with floured hands. Put into dumpling claws dipped into hot water and floured inside. Leave room to swell, and tie the strings very tightly. Boil 3/4 of an hour. Serve hot with wine sauce. Fruit suet dumplings are made as above, with the addition of 1/2 pound raisins, seeded, chopped, and dredged with flour, and 1/4 pound currants, washed, dried, and dredged. Boil 1 hour and a quarter. Boiled Indian meal pudding. 1 quart milk, 1 quart Indian meal, 3 eggs, 3 heaping tablespoonsful sugar, and 1 teaspoonful salt, 1/2 pound beef suet, chopped into powder. Scald the milk, and while boiling hot stir in the meal and suet with the salt. When cold add the yolks, beaten light with the sugar, then the whites. Dip your bag in hot water, flour it and fill half full with the mixture, as it will swell very much. Boil 5 hours. Eat very hot with butter and sugar. Cabinet pudding. 1/2 pound flour, 1/4 pound butter, 5 eggs, 1 1/2 pound sugar, 1/2 pound raisins seeded and cut into 3 pieces each, 1/2 pound currants washed and dried, 1/2 cup cream or milk, 1/2 lemon, juice and rind grated. Cream the butter and sugar, add the beaten yolks, then the milk and flour, alternately with the whites. Lastly, stir in the fruit, well dredged with flour, turn into a buttered mold, and boil 2 hours and a half at least. Serve hot, with cabinet pudding sauce over it. See Sweet Sauces. Eve's Pudding. 1 heaping cup of fine, dry breadcrumbs, 1/2 pound pared and chopped apples, 1/2 pound raisins seeded and chopped, 6 ounces of currants washed and dried, 6 eggs, 1 teaspoonful nutmeg, and same of allspice, 1 glass brandy, 1 cup sugar, and 1 teaspoonful salt, 1/2 pound suet, chopped to powder. Work the sugar into the beaten yolks, then the suet and crumbs, with the chopped apples, next the brandy and spice, then the whipped whites, lastly the fruit, well dredged with flour. Boil in a buttered bowl or mold 3 hours. Eat hot with sauce. The Queen of Plum Puddings. 1 pound butter, 1 pound of suet freed from strings and chopped fine, 1 pound of sugar, 1 1/2 pounds of flour, 2 pounds of raisins, seeded, chopped, and dredged with flour, 2 pounds of currants, picked over carefully after they are washed, 1/4 pound of citron, shred fine, 12 eggs, whites and yolks beaten separately, 1 pint of milk, 1 cup of brandy, 1/2 ounce of cloves, 1/2 ounce of mace, 2 grated nutmegs. Cream the butter and sugar. Beat in the yolks when you have whipped them smooth and light. Next put in the milk, then the flour, alternately with the beaten whites, then the brandy and spice, lastly the fruit, well dredged with flour. Mix all thoroughly, wring out your pudding cloth in hot water, flour well inside, pour in the mixture and boil 5 hours. I can confidently recommend this as the best plum pudding I have ever tasted, even when the friend at whose table I had first the pleasure of eating it imitated the example of good King Arthur's economical spouse, and what we couldn't eat that night, next day fried, by heating a little butter in a frying pan and laying in slices of her pudding, warmed them to almost their original excellence. It will keep a long time, in locked closet or safe. Orange roly-poly. Make a light paste as for apple dumplings or valise pudding. Roll in an oblong sheet and lay oranges, sweet ones, peeled, sliced, and seeded, thickly all over it. Sprinkle with white sugar. Scatter a teaspoonful or 2 of the grated yellow peel over all, and roll up closely, folding down the end to secure the syrup. Boil in a pudding cloth 1 hour and a half. Eat with lemon sauce. Cherry or currant pyramid. Wash and stone the cherries, or pick the currants from their stems. Make some good light crust, roll it out 1/4 inch thick, and cut for the bottom a round piece about the size of a tea plate. You can use the top of a tin pail for a cutter. Spread your fruit upon this, and sprinkle with sugar, leaving a 1/2 inch margin all around. Roll out a second sheet, an inch less in diameter than the first, lay it carefully upon the fruit, and turn up the margin of the lower piece over the edge of this. Spread this in turn with fruit and sugar, and cover with a third and lessening round, proceeding in this order until the 6th and topmost cover is not more than 3 inches across. Have ready a conical cap of stout muslin, adapted to the proportions and dimensions of your pile. Dip it in boiling water, flour inside, and draw gently over all. It should be large enough to meet and tie under the base without cramping the pyramid. Boil 2 hours and eat with sweet sauce. End of section 41.
Section 42 of Common Sense in the Household. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Betty B. Common Sense in the Household, a Manual of Practical Housewifery by Marion Harland. Fritters, pancakes, etc. Have plenty of nice sweet lard in which to fry fritters, and test the heat by dropping in a teaspoonful before you risk more. If right, The batter will rise quickly to the surface in a puff ball, spluttering and dancing, and will speedily assume a rich golden brown. Take up, as soon as done, with a skimmer, shaking it to dislodge any drops of lard that may adhere. Pile in a hot dish, sift sugar over them, and send instantly to the table. Fry as many at a time as the kettle will hold, and send in hot fresh ones while the batter lasts. A round bottom saucepan or kettle, rather wide at top, is best for frying them. Use a frying pan for pancakes. Heat it, put in a teaspoonful or two of lard and run it quickly over the bottom. Then pour in a large ladleful of batter, enough to cover the bottom of the pan with a thin sheet. Turn with a tin spatula very carefully to avoid tearing it. The frying pan should be a small one. Have ready a hot dish, turn out the pancake upon it, cover with powdered sugar, and roll up dexterously like a sheet of paper. Send half a dozen to table at once, keeping them hot by setting the dish in the oven until enough are baked. I am thus explicit in these general instructions to save myself the trouble, and the reader the tedium, of a repetition under each receipt. In olden times it was the boast of notable cooks that they could toss a pancake from the pan out of the top of the chimney with such accuracy of calculation that it would turn itself on the way back and settle in its place, ready, like St. Lawrence, to have the other side fried. I never saw a pancake tossed, although in my childish days I saw hundreds fried by the honorable tribe, now so fast passing away, of old Virginia cooks. I do not advise this acrobatic system of culinary exploit, especially for beginners. Indeed, I doubt if the pancakes would be found equal to the journey in these days of tight chimney throats and cooking stoves. They must be out of practice as well as their manufacturers. Be careful not to have too much grease in the pan. Fritters, No. 1. 1 pint flour, 4 eggs, 1 teaspoonful salt, 1 pint boiling water. Stir the flour into the water by degrees, and stir until it has boiled 3 minutes. Let it get almost cold, when beat in the yolks, then the whites of the eggs, which must be previously whipped stiff. Fritters, No. 2. 6 eggs, 1 quart milk, 3 cups flour, 1/2 teaspoonful soda dissolved in hot water, 1 teaspoonful cream tartar sifted into the flour, a little salt. Beat the yolks and whites separately, of course. Stir the milk in with the former, then the soda, the flour, and salt, finally the whites. Beat very hard and fry at once in great ladlefuls. Apple fritters. A batter according to the preceding receipt. 3 large juicy apples, pared and quartered. 1 glass brandy. 1 tablespoonful white sugar. 1 teaspoonful cinnamon. Put the brandy, a very little water, the sugar, and the spice into a covered saucepan with the apples. Stir gently until half done. Drain off the liquor, every drop. Mince the apple when cold, and stir into the batter. Or, you may parboil the apples in clear water with a very little sugar, and proceed as just directed. Jelly fritters. 1 scant cup sponge cake crumbs, very fine and dry. 1 cup boiling milk. 4 eggs. 2 tablespoonfuls powdered sugar. 1 teaspoonful cornstarch, wet in a little cold milk. 2 tablespoonfuls currant or cranberry jelly. Soak the cake crumbs in the boiling milk, and stir in the cornstarch. Heat all together to a boil, stirring all the time. Beat the yolks light, and add to this as it cools with the sugar. Whip in the jelly, a little at a time, and put in the whites, beaten to a stiff froth, at the last. Fry immediately. Bread fritters. 1 quart milk, boiling hot. 2 cups fine breadcrumbs. Aerated bread is best. 3 eggs. 1 teaspoonful nutmeg. 1 tablespoonful butter, melted. 1 saltspoonful salt, and the same of soda, dissolved in hot water. Soak the bread in the boiling milk 10 minutes in a covered bowl. Beat to a smooth paste, add the whipped yolks, the butter, salt, soda, and finally the whites, whipped stiff. Queen's toast. Fry slices of stale baker's bread, aerated if you can get it, in boiling lard to a fine brown. Dip each slice quickly in boiling water to remove the grease. Sprinkle with powdered sugar and pile upon a hot plate. Before toasting, cut the slices with a round cake cutter, taking off all the crust. They look better when piled up. Pour sweet wine sauce over them when hot, and serve at once. Jelly cake fritters. Very nice. Some stale sponge or plain cupcake, cut into rounds with a cake cutter. Hot lard, strawberry or other jam or jelly, a little boiling milk. Cut the cake carefully and fry a nice brown. Dip each slice for a second in a bowl of boiling milk, draining this off on the side of the vessel. Lay on a hot dish and spread thickly with strawberry jam, peach jelly, or other delicate conserve. Pile them neatly and send around hot with cream to pour over them. This is a nice way of using up stale cake, and if rightly prepared, the dessert is almost equal to Neapolitan pudding. Pancakes. 1 pint of flour, 6 eggs, 1 saltspoonful salt, and same of soda dissolved in vinegar. Milk to make a thin batter. Begin with 2 cups and add until the batter is of the right consistency. Beat the yolks light, add the salt, soda, and 2 cups of milk, then the flour and beaten whites alternately, and thin with more milk. Jelly or jam pancakes. A batter as above. When the pancakes are fried, lay upon a hot plate, spread quickly with nice jam or jelly, and roll up neatly upon the preserves. Sprinkle lightly with powdered sugar, and send around with wine sauce or sweetened cream. End of section 42. Section 43 of Common Sense in the Household. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Betty B. Common Sense in the Household, a Manual of Practical Housewifery by Marion Harland. Sweet or pudding sauces. Hard sauce. Stir to a cream 1 cup of butter, 3 cups of powdered sugar. When light, beat in 3/4 teacup wine, juice of a lemon, 2 teaspoonfuls nutmeg. Beat long and hard until several shades lighter in color than at first, and creamy in consistency. Smooth into shape with the broad knife dipped in cold water, and stamp with a wooden mold, first scalded and then dipped in cold water. Set upon the ice until the pudding is served. Beehive sauce. Mix a hard sauce according to the previous receipt, and when light, set aside 3 or 4 tablespoonfuls in a plate. To the larger quantity left, add gradually cherry, currant, or cranberry juice enough to color it a good pink. Red jelly will do if berries are out of season. Beat the coloring matter in thoroughly and shape into a conical mound. Roll half a sheet of note paper into a long, narrow funnel. Tie a string about it to keep it in shape, and fill with the uncolored sauce. Squeeze it out gently through the small end in a ridge, beginning at the base of the cone and winding about it to the top, filling your funnel as it is emptied, and guiding it carefully. The effect of the alternate white and pink lines is very pretty. If the pudding is one to which chocolate would be a pleasant addition, color with grated chocolate. Rub smooth in a little of the wine, and ridge with white. Set upon the ice or upon the cellar floor until firm. Stick a colored almond or other ornamental candy upon the top. This beehive is easily made, and will set off even a plain pudding handsomely. Brandy sauce. Hard. 1/2 cup butter, 2 cups powdered sugar, 1 wineglass brandy, 1 teaspoonful mixed cinnamon and mace. Warm the butter very slightly, work in the sugar, and, when this is light, the brandy and spice. Beat hard, shape into a mold, and set in a cold place until wanted. White wine sauce. Liquid. 1/2 cup butter, 2 1/2 cups powdered sugar, 2 wineglasses pale sherry or white wine, 1/2 cup boiling water, 1 teaspoonful nutmeg. Work the butter into the sugar, moistening, as you go on, with boiling water. Beat long and hard until your bowl is nearly full of a creamy mixture. Then add gradually the wine and nutmeg, still beating hard. Turn into a tin pail, set within a saucepan of boiling water, and stir frequently until the sauce is hot, but not until it boils. Take the saucepan from the fire and leave the pail standing in the water, stirring the contents now and then until you are ready to serve the pudding. If rightly made, this sauce will be nearly as white as milk. Lemon sauce. 1 large cup of sugar, nearly half a cup of butter, 1 egg, 1 lemon, all the juice and half the grated peel, 1 teaspoonful nutmeg, 3 tablespoonfuls boiling water. Cream the butter and sugar and beat in the egg whipped light, the lemon and nutmeg. Beat hard 10 minutes and add, a spoonful at a time, the boiling water. Put in a tin pail and set within the uncovered top of the tea kettle, which you must keep boiling until the steam heats the sauce very hot, but not to boiling. Stir constantly. Milk pudding sauce. 2 eggs beaten stiff, 1 large cup of sugar, 5 tablespoonfuls boiling milk, 1/2 teaspoonful arrowroot or cornstarch, wet with cold milk, 1 teaspoonful nutmeg or mace, 1 tablespoonful butter. Rub the butter into the sugar, add the beaten eggs and work all to a creamy froth. Wet the cornstarch and put in next with the spice. Finally, pour in by the spoonful the boiling milk, beating well all the time. Set within a saucepan of boiling water 5 minutes, stirring all the while, but do not let the sauce boil. This is a good sauce for bread and other simple puddings. Cabinet pudding sauce. Yolks of 4 eggs whipped very light, 1 lemon, juice and half the grated peel, 1 good glass of wine, 1 teaspoonful of cinnamon, 1 cup of sugar, 1 tablespoonful of butter. Rub the butter into the sugar, add the yolks, lemon, and spice. Beat 10 minutes and put in the wine, still stirring hard. Set within a saucepan of boiling water and beat while it heats, but do not let it boil. Pour over the pudding. Fruit pudding sauce. 1/2 cup butter, 2 1/2 cup sugar, 1 dessertspoonful cornstarch wet in a little cold milk, 1 lemon, juice and half the grated peel, 1 glass of wine, 1 cup boiling water. Cream the butter and sugar well. Pour the cornstarch into the boiling water and stir over a clear fire until it is well thickened. Put all together in a bowl and beat 5 minutes before returning to the saucepan. Heat once, almost to the boiling point, add the wine and serve. Custard sauce. 1 pint of milk, 2 eggs beaten very light, 1/2 wineglass of brandy, 1 cup powdered sugar stirred into the eggs, nutmeg to taste, 1 teaspoonful vanilla. Heat the milk to boiling and add by degrees to the beaten eggs and sugar. Put in the nutmeg and set within a saucepan of boiling water. Stir until it begins to thicken. Take it off and add the brandy gradually. Set until it is wanted within a pan of boiling water. Pour over the pudding when it comes from the mould. Jelly sauce. 1/2 cup currant jelly, 1 tablespoon butter melted, 1/2 dessertspoonful arrowroot or cornstarch, wet with cold water, 1 glass pale sherry, 3 tablespoonfuls boiling water. Stir the arrowroot into the boiling water and heat, stirring all the time until it thickens. Add the butter and set aside until almost cool, when beat in, spoonful by spoonful, the jelly to a smooth pink paste. Pour in the wine, stir hard, and heat in a tin vessel, set within another of boiling water until very hot. Pour over and around Neapolitan, bread and marmalade puddings, cake fritters, and Queen's toast. Sweetened cream. Cold. 1 pint of cream, 4 tablespoonfuls powdered sugar, 1 teaspoonful of nutmeg, 1 teaspoonful vanilla. Mix all well together, stirring until the sugar is dissolved. Eat with jam puddings, Queen of all puddings, Alice's pudding, and peach roly-poly. Cream sauce hot. 1 pint cream, 4 tablespoonfuls powdered sugar, whites of 2 eggs beaten stiff, extract of vanilla or bitter almonds, 1 teaspoonful, 1 teaspoonful nutmeg. Heat the cream slowly in a vessel set in a saucepan of boiling water, stirring often. When scalding, but not boiling hot, remove it from the fire, put in the sugar and nutmeg, stir 3 or 4 minutes and add the whites. Mix thoroughly and flavor, setting the bowl containing it in a pan of hot water until the pudding is served, stirring now and then. Jelly sauce, No. 2. 1/2 cup currant jelly, 2 tablespoonfuls melted butter, 1 lemon, juice and half the grated peel, 1/2 teaspoonful nutmeg, 2 glasses wine, and a tablespoonful powdered sugar. Heat the butter a little more than blood warm. Beat the jelly to a smooth batter, and add gradually the butter, the lemon, and nutmeg. Warm almost to a boil, stirring all the while. Beat hard, put in the sugar, lastly the wine. Set in a vessel of hot water, stirring now and then until it is wanted. Keep it covered to hinder the escape of the wine flavor. Stir well before pouring out. This is a very fine sauce, particularly for cabinet and Neapolitan puddings. End of section 43. Section 44 of Common Sense in the Household. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Betty B. Common Sense in the Household, a Manual of Practical Housewifery by Marion Harland. Custards, Blanc-Mange, Jellies, and Creams. A good rule for custard is 5 eggs to a quart of milk, and a tablespoonful of sugar to each egg, although a good plain custard can be made with an egg for each cup of milk and 4 tablespoonfuls of sugar to the quart. Creams and custards that are to be frozen must have at least 1/3 more sugar than those which are not to undergo this process. In heating the milk for custard, do not let it quite boil before adding the yolks. My plan, which has proved a safe one thus far, is to take the scalding milk from the fire, and instead of pouring the beaten eggs into it, to put a spoonful or 2 of the milk to them, beating well all the while, adding more and more milk as I mix, until there is no longer danger of sudden curdling. Then return all to the fire, and boil gently until the mixture is of the right consistency. From 10 to 15 minutes should thicken a quart. Stir constantly. A pinch of soda added in hot weather will prevent the milk from curdling. Always boil milk and custard in a vessel set within another of boiling water. If you have not a custard or farina kettle, improvise one by setting a tin pail inside of a pot of hot water, taking care it does not float, also that the water is not so deep as to bubble over the top. Custards are better and lighter if the yolks and whites are beaten separately, the latter stirred in at the last. Boiled custard. 1 quart of milk, yolks of 5 eggs and the whites of 7, 2 for the meringue, 6 tablespoonfuls sugar, vanilla flavoring 1 teaspoonful to the pint. Heat the milk almost to boiling. Beat the yolks light and stir in the sugar. Add the milk in the manner described in General Directions at head of this section. Stir in 5 whites whipped stiff. Return to the fire and stir until thick, but not until it breaks. Season it with vanilla, pour into glass cups, whip the whites of 2 eggs to a meringue with a heaping tablespoonful of powdered sugar, and when the custard is cold, pile a little of this upon the top of each cup. You may lay a preserved strawberry or cherry, or a bit of melon sweetmeat, or a little bright jelly upon each. Almond custards. 1 pint milk, half cream. 1/4 pound almonds, blanched and pounded to a paste, a few at a time in a Wedgewood mortar, adding gradually 2 tablespoonfuls of rose water, yolks of 3 eggs and whites of 4, 2 for meringue, 4 tablespoonfuls sugar, 1 teaspoonful extract bitter almond in meringue. Scald the milk, add the beaten yolks, the sugar, the almond paste, and the whites of 2 eggs. Boil, stirring constantly until it thickens. Stir up well when almost cold, and pour into cups. Make a meringue of the whites of 2 eggs and 2 tablespoonfuls powdered sugar, flavored with bitter almond, and heap upon each cup. Quaking custard. 3 cups milk, yolks of 4 eggs, reserving the whites for meringue. 1/2 package Cooper's or Cox's gelatine, 6 tablespoonfuls sugar, vanilla or lemon flavoring, juice of a lemon in meringue. Soak the gelatine in a cup of the cold milk 2 hours. Then heat the rest of the milk to boiling, add that in which the gelatine is, and stir over the fire until the latter is quite dissolved. Take from the fire and let it stand 5 minutes before putting in the beaten yolks and sugar. Heat slowly until it begins to thicken perceptibly, not boil, say 7 or 8 minutes, stirring constantly. When nearly cold, having stirred it every few minutes during the time, flavor it, wash out your mould in cold water, and without wiping it, pour in the custard and set on the ice or in a cold place to harden. When quite firm, turn into a cold dish, loosening it by wrapping about the mould a cloth wrung out in hot water, or dipping the mould for an instant in warm, not boiling water. Have ready the whites whipped to a froth with 3 tablespoonfuls powdered sugar and juice of a lemon. Heap neatly about the base of the moulded custard, like snowdrifts. If you like, you may dot this with minute bits of currant jelly. This is a pleasing dish to the eye and taste. Floating Island. 1 quart of milk. 5 eggs, whites and yolks beaten separately. 4 tablespoonfuls heaping white sugar. 2 teaspoonfuls extract bitter almond or vanilla. 1/2 cup currant jelly. Beat the yolks well, stir in the sugar, and add the hot, not boiling milk, a little at a time. Boil until it begins to thicken. When cool, flavor and pour into a glass dish, first stirring it up well. Heap upon it a meringue of the whites into which you have beaten gradually 1/2 cup of currant, cranberry, or other bright tart jelly. Dot with bits of jelly cut into rings or stars, or straight slips laid on in a pattern. Spanish cream. 1/2 box of gelatine, 1 quart of milk, yolks of 3 eggs, 1 small cup of sugar. Soak the gelatine an hour in the milk, put on the fire and stir well as it warms. Beat the yolks very light with the sugar, add to the scalding milk, and heat to boiling point, stirring all the while. Strain through thin muslin or tarlatan, and when almost cold, put into a mould wet with cold water, flavor with vanilla or lemon. Bavarian cream, very fine. 1 quart sweet cream, yolks only of 4 eggs, 1/2 ounce of gelatine or isinglass, 1 cup (small) of sugar, 2 teaspoonfuls vanilla or bitter almond extract. Soak the gelatine in just enough cold water to cover it for an hour. Drain and stir into a pint of the cream made boiling hot. Beat the yolks smooth with the sugar and add the boiling mixture, beaten in a little at a time. Heat until it begins to thicken, but do not actually boil. Remove it from the fire, flavor, and while it is still hot, stir in the other pint of cream, whipped or churned in a syllabub churn to a stiff froth. Beat in this whip, a spoonful at a time, into the custard, until it is the consistency of sponge cake batter. Dip a mould in cold water, pour in the mixture, and set on the ice to form. Snow custard. 1/2 package Cox's gelatine, 3 eggs, 1 pint milk, 2 cups of sugar, juice of 1 lemon. Soak the gelatine 1 hour in a teacupful of cold water. To this, at the end of this time, add 1 pint boiling water. Stir until the gelatine is thoroughly dissolved. Add 2/3 of the sugar and the lemon juice. Beat the whites of the eggs to a stiff froth, and when the gelatine is quite cold, whip it into the whites, a spoonful at a time, for an hour. Whip steadily and evenly, and when all is stiff, pour into a mould, previously wet with cold water, and set in a cold place. In 4 or 5 hours, turn into a glass dish. Make a custard of the milk, eggs, and remainder of the sugar, flavor with vanilla or bitter almond, and when the meringue is turned out of the mould, pour this around the base. Baked custard. 1 quart of milk, 5 eggs beaten light, whites and yolks separately, 5 tablespoonfuls sugar mixed with the yolks, nutmeg and vanilla. Scald, but not boil the milk. Add by degrees to the beaten yolks, and when well mixed, stir in the whites. Flavor and pour into a deep dish or custard cups of white stone china. Set these in a pan of hot water, grate nutmeg upon each, and bake until firm. Eat cold from the cups. French tapioca custard. 5 dessertspoonfuls tapioca, 1 quart of milk, 1 pint of cold water, 3 eggs, 1 teaspoonful vanilla or other essence, 1 heaping cup of sugar, a pinch of salt. Soak the tapioca in the water 5 hours. Let the milk come to a boil, add the tapioca, the water in which it was boiled, and a good pinch of salt. Stir until boiling hot, and add gradually to the beaten yolks and sugar. Boil again, always in a vessel set within another of hot water, stirring constantly. Let it cook until thick, but not too long, as the custard will break. 5 minutes after it reaches the boil will suffice. Pour into a bowl, and stir gently into the mixture the whites of the eggs, beaten to a stiff froth. Flavor and set aside in a glass dish until very cold. Eat with an accompaniment of light cake and brandied or canned peaches or pears. This will be found a very delightful dessert. Tapioca Blanc-Mange. 1/2 pound tapioca soaked in a cup of cold water 4 hours. 1 pint rich new milk. 3/4 cup of sugar. 2 teaspoonfuls bitter almond or vanilla essence. A little salt. Heat the milk and stir in the soaked tapioca. When it has dissolved, add the sugar. Boil slowly 15 minutes, stirring all the time. Take from the fire and beat until nearly cold. Flavor and pour into a mould dipped in cold water. Turn out and pour cold sweetened cream around it. Sago Blanc-Mange may be made in the same way as tapioca. Corn starch Blanc-Mange. 1 quart of milk, 4 tablespoonfuls corn starch, wet in a little cold water. 3 eggs, well beaten, whites and yolks separately. 1 cup of sugar, vanilla, lemon, or other essence. 1 saltspoonful salt. Heat the milk to boiling. Stir in the corn starch and salt, and boil together 5 minutes in a farina kettle. Then add the yolks, beaten light with the sugar. Boil 2 minutes longer, stirring all the while. Remove the mixture from the fire and beat in the whipped whites while it is boiling hot. Pour into a mould wet with cold water and set in a cold place. Eat with sugar and cream. Farina Blanc-Mange is made according to the above receipt, but boiled 15 minutes before the eggs are added. You may omit the eggs if you like and only want a plain dessert. Arrowroot Blanc-Mange. 3 cups of new milk, 2 1/2 tablespoonfuls of arrowroot wet up with cold milk, 3/4 cup of sugar, vanilla, lemon, or bitter almond flavoring, with a little white wine. Mix the arrowroot to a smooth batter with 1 cup of the milk. Heat the remainder to boiling, add the arrowroot, stirring constantly. When it begins to thicken, put in the sugar and cook 10 minutes longer, still stirring it well from the sides and bottom. Take it off, beat well 5 minutes, flavor with the essence and a small wineglass of white wine. Give a hard final stir before putting it into a mould wet with cold water. This is very nourishing for invalids and young children. For the latter you may omit the wine. Almond Blanc-Mange. 1 quart of milk, 1 ounce Cooper's gelatine, 3 ounces of almonds, blanched and pounded in a mortar, with 1 tablespoonful of rose water, added to prevent oiling, 3/4 cup sugar. Heat the milk to boiling, having previously soaked the gelatine in a cup of it for an hour. Turn in this when the milk is scalding hot, add the pounded almond paste, and stir all together 10 minutes before putting in the sugar. When the gelatine has dissolved, remove the blanc-mange from the vessel of boiling water in which you have cooked it, and strain through a thin muslin bag, pressing it well to get out the flavor of the almonds. There should be 3 or 4 bitter ones among them. Wet a mould with cold water, put in the blanc-mange, and set in a cold place until firm. You may make blanc-mange without the almonds, although it will not be so nice, and substitute vanilla for the rose water. Neapolitan Blanc-Mange. Make according to the foregoing receipt, and, after straining, separate into 4 different portions, allowing about a cupful of the mixture for each. Have ready 1 great tablespoonful chocolate, wet with a very little boiling water, and rubbed to a smooth paste, for the brown coloring. Yolk of an egg beaten light for the yellow. 1 great tablespoonful of currant jelly for the pink. Beat the chocolate into 1 portion, mixing it well, the jelly into another, the egg into a third, returning this and that flavored with chocolate to the fire and stirring until very hot, but not boiling. Leave the fourth uncolored. When quite cold and a little stiff, pour carefully into a wet mould, the white first, then the pink, next the yellow, and the chocolate last. Of course, when the Blanc-Mange is turned out, this order of colors will be reversed. Set in a cold place. Loosen, when firm, by dipping the mould for a moment in warm water, and working the top free from the edge with a few light touches of your fingers. This is a handsome dish and easily managed. Currant juice or cranberry color a finer pink than jelly, but are apt to thin the Blanc-Mange unless used cautiously. A little vanilla improves the chocolate. Jaune Mange. 1 ounce Cox's gelatine soaked in half a cup cold water 1 hour. 1 cup of boiling water. Yolks of 4 eggs beaten very light. 1 orange, juice and half the grated peel. 1 lemon, juice and 1/3 the grated peel. 1 cup white wine or clear pale sherry. 1 cup powdered sugar, and a good pinch cinnamon. Stir the soaked gelatine in the boiling water until dissolved. Take from the fire and beat, a little at a time, into the yolks. Return to the inner saucepan with the sugar, orange, lemon, and cinnamon. Stir over a clear fire until it is boiling hot. Put in the wine and strain through a hair sieve or a piece of tarlatan. Set away in a mould wet with cold water. The success of this dish depends upon the stirring and the watchfulness of the cook. The mixture should not be allowed to boil at any moment. Velvet Blanc-Mange. 2 cups of sweet cream, 1/2 ounce Cooper's gelatine, soaked in a very little cold water 1 hour. 1/2 cup white sugar, powdered. 1 teaspoonful extract of bitter almonds. 1 glass white wine. Heat the cream to boiling. Stir in the gelatine and sugar, and so soon as they are dissolved, take from the fire. Beat 10 minutes, or, what is better, churn in a syllabub churn until very light. Flavor and add by degrees the wine, mixing it in well. Put into moulds wet with cold water. Chocolate Blanc-Mange. 1 quart of milk, 1 ounce Cooper's gelatine, soaked in a cup of the milk 1 hour. 4 heaping tablespoonfuls of grated chocolate, rubbed up with a little milk. 3 eggs, whites and yolks beaten separately. 3/4 cup sugar, and 2 teaspoonfuls of vanilla. Heat the milk to boiling, pour in the gelatine and milk, and stir until it is dissolved. Add the sugar to the beaten yolks and stir until smooth. Beat the chocolate into this and pour in, spoonful by spoonful, the scalding milk upon the mixture, stirring all the while until all is in. Return to the inner saucepan and heat gently, stirring faithfully until it almost boils. Remove from fire, turn into a bowl, and whip in lightly and briskly the beaten whites with the vanilla. Set to form in moulds wet with cold water. Charlotte Russe. 1 pound of lady's fingers, 1 quart of rich sweet cream, 3/4 cup powdered sugar, 2 teaspoonfuls vanilla or other extract. Split and trim the cakes, and fit neatly in the bottom and sides of 2-quart moulds. Whip the cream to a stiff froth in a syllabub churn when you have sweetened and flavored it. Fill the moulds, lay cakes closely together on the top, and set upon the ice until needed. Or, you may use for this purpose a loaf of sponge cake, cutting strips from it for the sides and leaving the crust for the bottom and top, each in one piece. A tipsy Charlotte. 1 large stale sponge cake, 1 pint rich sweet cream, 1 cup sherry wine, 1/2 ounce Cooper's gelatine soaked in a cup of cold water 2 hours, 1 teaspoonful vanilla or bitter almond extract, 3 eggs, whites and yolks beaten together but very light, 1 pint milk, 1 cup sugar. Heat the cream almost to boiling, put in the soaked gelatine and half a cup of sugar, and stir until dissolved. Remove from the fire, flavor, and when cool, beat or churn to a standing froth. Cut off the top of the cake in one piece and scoop out the middle, leaving the sides and bottom 3/4 of an inch thick. Over the inside of these pour the wine in spoonfuls, that all may be evenly moistened. Fill with the whipped cream, replace the top, which should also be moistened with wine and set in a cold place until needed. Serve with it or pour around it a custard made of the eggs, milk, and the other half cup of sugar. Chocolate Charlotte Russe. 1/2 ounce Cooper's gelatine, soaked in a very little cold water. 3 tablespoonfuls grated chocolate, rubbed smooth in a little milk. 1/2 cup powdered sugar. 4 eggs. 1/2 pound sponge cake. 1 teaspoonful vanilla. 1 pint cream. Heat the cream to boiling. Slowly stirring frequently, add the sugar, chocolate, and gelatine, and when these are dissolved, add, a spoonful at a time, to the beaten yolks. Set back in the saucepan of boiling water and stir 5 minutes, until very hot, but do not let it boil off. Take it off, flavor, and whip or churn to a standing froth, adding the beaten whites toward the last. Line a mould with cake, fill with the mixture, and set upon the ice. Flummery. 2 ounces almonds, a few bitter among them, 1 tablespoon orange flower or rose water, 1 pint cream, 1 ounce Cooper's gelatine, soaked 1 hour in 1 cup cold water, 1 cup milk, ½ cup sugar. Blanch the almonds, and when cold, pound them to a paste in a Wedgewood mortar, adding orange flower or rose water to prevent oiling. Heat the milk to boiling, put in the gelatine, the sugar, and almonds, and stir 5 minutes, or until they are thoroughly dissolved. Strain through thin muslin, pressing the cloth well. When cool, beat in the cream, a little at a time, with an egg whip, or churn in a syllabub churn until thick and stiff. Wet your mould, put in the mixture, and let it stand 7 or 8 hours in a cold place. Gelatine Charlotte Russe. Very nice. 1 pint of cream, whipped light, 1/2 ounce gelatine dissolved in 1 gill of hot milk, whites of 2 eggs beaten to a stiff froth, 1 small teacup of powdered sugar, flavor with bitter almond and vanilla. Mix the cream, eggs, and sugar, flavor, and beat in the gelatine and milk last. It should be quite cold before it is added. Line a mould with slices of sponge cake or with lady's fingers, and fill with the mixture. Set upon the ice to cool. Whipped syllabubs. 1 pint of cream, rich and sweet, 1/2 cup sugar, powdered, 1 glass of wine, vanilla or other extract, 1 large teaspoonful. Sweeten the cream, and, when the sugar is thoroughly dissolved, churn to a strong froth. Lastly, stir in wine and seasoning carefully. Serve at once. Heap in glasses and eat with cake. Gooseberry Fool. 1 quart of gooseberries ripe, 1 tablespoonful butter, 1 cup of sugar, yolks of 4 eggs, meringue of whites, and 3 tablespoonfuls sugar. Stew the gooseberries in just water enough to cover them. When soft and broken, rub them through a sieve to remove the skins. While still hot, beat in the butter, sugar, and the whipped yolks of the eggs. Pile in a glass dish or in small glasses, and heap upon the top a meringue of the whipped whites and sugar. Cream meringues. 4 eggs, the whites only, whipped stiff with 1 pound powdered sugar, lemon or vanilla flavoring, 1 teaspoonful arrowroot. When very stiff, heap in the shape of half an egg upon stiff letter paper lining the bottom of your baking pan. Have them ½ an inch apart. Do not shut the oven door closely, but leave a space through which you can watch them. When they are light yellow brown, take them out and cool quickly. Slip a thin-bladed knife under each, scoop out the soft inside, and fill with cream whipped as for Charlotte Russe. They are very fine. The oven should be very hot. Calf's Foot Jelly. 4 calf's feet cleaned carefully, 4 quarts of water, 1 pint of wine, 3 cups of sugar, or sweetened to taste, whites of 3 eggs well beaten, 2 teaspoonfuls of nutmeg, juice of 1 lemon, and half the grated peel. Boil the calf's feet in the water until it is reduced 1/2. Strain the liquor and let it stand 10 to 12 hours. Skim off every particle of the fat and remove the dregs. Melt slowly in a porcelain or bell metal kettle. Add the seasoning, sugar, and the whipped whites of the eggs, and boil fast about 12 minutes, skimming well. Strain through a double flannel bag suspended between the four legs of an upturned high stool or backless chair, the bowl set beneath. Do not squeeze or shake it until the jelly ceases to run freely. Then slip out the bowl and put under another, into which you may gently press what remains. The first will be the clearer jelly, although the second dripping will taste quite as well. Wet your molds, put in the jelly, and set in a cool place. There are still some housekeepers who insist that the jellies made from the modern gelatine are not comparable in beauty and flavor to those prepared from the genuine feet. Seeing means taste as well as belief with them, and when they handle and behold the beloved feet, they know what they are about. Gelatine, they will darkly and disgustfully assert, is made of horn shavings and hoofs and the like, and no more fit to be used for cooking purposes than so much glue. Nevertheless, while gelatine is so clean, bright, and convenient, housewives who find the days now but half as long as did their mothers, despite labor-saving machines, will turn a deaf ear to these alarmists and escape the tedious process above described by using the valuable substitute. Wine jelly. 3 cups of sugar, 1 pint of wine, pale sherry or white, 1 cup of cold water, 1 package Cox's gelatine, juice of 2 lemons and grated peel of 1, 1 quart of boiling water, 1 good pinch of cinnamon. Soak the gelatine in the cold water 1 hour. Add to this the sugar, lemons, and cinnamon. Pour over all a quart of boiling water and stir until the gelatine is thoroughly dissolved. Put in the wine, strain through a double flannel bag without squeezing. Wet your molds with cold water and set the jelly away in them to cool. Cider jelly may be made by the receipt just given, substituting a pint of clear sweet cider for the wine. Fever patients may use cider jelly when wine is forbidden, and they will find this both refreshing and nutritious. Bird's nest in jelly. 1 quart of jelly, made according to either of the receipts just given, but with a cup less of boiling water, that it may be very firm. 3 cups of white Blanc-Mange, 9 empty eggshells, fresh rinds of 2 oranges, 1 cup of sugar. Cut the rind from the oranges in long narrow strips, and stew these gently in enough water to cover them until they are tender. Add to them a cup of sugar, and simmer 15 minutes longer in the syrup. Lay them out upon a dish to cool, taking care not to break them. If you have preserved orange peel in the house, it will save you the trouble of preparing this. The Blanc-Mange should be made the day before you want it, and the eggshells filled. The original contents, yolk and white, should be poured out through a hole, not larger than a half dime, in the small end, and the interior washed with pure water, shaken around well in them. Then fill with Blanc-Mange and set in a pan of flour or sugar, the open end up, that they may not be jostled or overturned. Next morning fill a glass dish 2/3 full of the jelly, which should be very clear, reserving a large cupful. Break the shells from about the Blanc-Mange and lay the artificial eggs upon the jelly so soon as the latter is firm enough to bear them. Pile them neatly, but not too high in the middle, bearing in mind that what is the top now will be the bottom when the jelly is turned out. Lay the orange peel, which represents straw, over these and around them. Warm the reserved jelly so that it will flow readily, but do not get it hot. Pour over the straw and eggs, and set away in a cold place to form. When firm, turn out upon a glass dish or salver. This pretty and fanciful dish is yet easily made. The materials are so simple and inexpensive, and the effect of the work, if deftly done, so pleasing, that I have no hesitation in calling the attention even of novices to it. Wine jelly, boiled. 1 box Cox's gelatine, soaked in 1 pint of cold water 1 hour. 1 quart of boiling water poured over this, and stirred until the gelatine is dissolved. 1 1/2 pound white sugar. 2 lemons, juice and peel. 1 pint of wine. Put all over the fire, boil up once well, and strain through a double flannel bag into molds. Orange jelly. 2 oranges, juice of both and grated rind of 1. 1 lemon, juice and peel. 1 package Cox's gelatine, soaked in a very little water 1 hour. 1 quart boiling water. 1 1/2 cup sugar, and 1 small cup of wine. 1 good pinch of cinnamon. Squeeze the juice of the fruit into a bowl, and put with them the grated peel and the cinnamon. Pour over them the boiling water, cover closely, and let stand half an hour. Strain, add the sugar, let it come to a boil, stir in the gelatine, and, when this is well dissolved, take the saucepan from the fire. Strain through a double flannel bag into moulds. Variegated jelly. 1 quart of clear jelly, 1/2 teaspoonful prepared cochineal or red currant juice, 1 cup white Blanc-Mange. Divide the jelly into 2 equal portions, and color one with a very little prepared cochineal, leaving the other as it is, of a pale amber. Wet a mould with cold water and pour in a little of the latter. Set the mould in the ice, that the jelly may harden quickly, and so soon as it is firm, pour in carefully some of the red. Set back upon the ice to get ready for the amber, adding the 2 colors in this order until you are ready for the base, which should be wider than the other stripes, and consist of the white Blanc-Mange. Keep both jelly and Blanc-Mange near the fire until you have filled the mould. I mean, of course, that intended for the latest layers. Let all get very firm before you turn it out. You may vary 2 moulds of this jelly by having the Blanc-Mange base of one colored with chocolate, a narrow white stripe above relieving the grave effect of the brown. End of section 44. Section 45 of Common Sense in the Household. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Betty B. Common Sense in the Household, a Manual of Practical Housewifery by Marion Harland. Ice cream and other ices. If you wish to prepare ice cream at an hour's notice, you cannot do better than to purchase the best patent freezer you can procure. I had one once which would freeze cream admirably in half an hour. I have forgotten the patentee's name, and perhaps this is well for him, since truth would oblige me to record an unlucky habit his machine had of getting out of order just when I wanted it to do its best. My earliest recollections of ice cream are of the discordant grinding of the well-worn freezer among the blocks of ice packed about it, a monotone of misery that, had it been unrelieved by agreeable associations of the good to which it was leading up, would not have been tolerated out of Bedlam. For 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours, it went on without other variety than the harsher sounds of the fresh ice and the rattling swash as the freezer plunged amid the icy brine when these were nearly melted, without cessation save when the unhappy operator nodded over his work, or was relieved by another predestined victim of luxury and ennui, a battalion of the laziest juveniles upon the place being detailed for this purpose. I verily believed in those days that the freezing could not be facilitated by energetic action, and used to think how fortunate it was that small darkies had a predilection for this drowsy employment. I shall never forget my amazement at seeing a brisk Yankee housewife lay hold of the handle of the ponderous tin cylinder and whirl it with such will and celerity, back and forth, that the desired end came to pass in 3/4 of an hour. That day has gone by. Time has grown too precious now even to juvenile contrabands for them to sit half the day shaking a freezer under the locust tree on the old plantation lawn. Machines that will do the work in 1/10 of the time, with 1/50 of the labor, are sold at every corner. But, so far as I know, it was reserved for a nice old lady up in the Jersey mountains, the tidiest, thriftiest, most cheerful bee I ever knew, to show her neighbors and acquaintances that ice cream could be made to freeze itself. For 12 years I have practiced her method, with such thankfulness to her, and such satisfaction to my guests and family, that I eagerly embraced the opportunity of circulating the good news. Self-freezing ice cream. 1 quart rich milk, 8 eggs, whites and yolks beaten separately and very light, 4 cups sugar, 3 pints rich sweet cream, 5 teaspoonfuls vanilla or other seasoning, or 1 vanilla bean broken in two, boiled in the custard and left in it until it is cold. Heat the milk almost to boiling, beat the eggs light, add the sugar, and stir up well. Pour the hot milk to this little by little, beating all the while, and return to the fire, boiling in a pail or saucepan set within one of hot water. Stir the mixture steadily about 15 minutes, or until it is thick as boiled custard. Pour into a bowl and set aside to cool. When quite cold, beat in the cream and the flavoring, unless you have used the bean. Have ready a quantity of ice, cracked in pieces not larger than a pigeon egg, the smaller the better. You can manage this easily by laying a great lump of ice between two folds of coarse sacking or an old carpet, tucking it in snugly, and battering it through the cloth with a sledge-hammer or mallet until fine enough. There is no waste of ice, nor need you take it in your hands at all. Only gather up the corners of the carpet or cloth, and slide as much as you want into the outer vessel. Use an ordinary old-fashioned upright freezer set in a deep pail. Pack around it closely, first, a layer of pounded ice, then one of rock salt. Common salt will not do so well. In this order fill the pail, but before covering the freezer lid, remove it carefully that none of the salt may get in, and, with a long wooden ladle or flat stick (I had one made on purpose), beat the custard as you would batter for 5 minutes, without stay or stint. Replace the lid, pack the ice and salt upon it, patting it down hard on top. Cover all with several folds of blanket or carpet, and leave it for 1 hour. Then remove the cover of the freezer when you have wiped it carefully outside. You will find a thick coating of frozen custard upon the bottom and sides. Dislodge this with your ladle, which should be thin at the lower end, or with a long carving knife, working every particle of it clear. Beat again hard and long until the custard is a smooth, half-congealed paste. The smoothness of the ice cream depends upon your action at this juncture. Put on the cover, pack in more ice and salt, and turn off the brine. Spread the double carpet over all once more, having buried the freezer out of sight in ice, and leave it for 3 or 4 hours. Then, if the water has accumulated in such quantity as to buoy up the freezer, pour it off, fill up with ice and salt, but do not open the freezer. In 2 hours more you may take it from the ice, open it, wrap a towel, wrung out in boiling water, about the lower part, and turn out a solid column of cream, firm, close-grained, and smooth as velvet to the tongue. Should the ice melt very fast, you may have to turn off the water more than twice, but this will seldom happen except in very hot weather. You need not devote 15 minutes in all to the business after the custard is made. You may go into the cellar before breakfast, having made the custard overnight, stir in the cold cream and flavoring, get it into the freezer and comfortably packed down before John has finished shaving, and by choosing the times for your stolen visits to the lower regions, surprise him and the children at a 1 o'clock dinner by the most delicious dessert in the world. I have often laughed in my sleeve at seeing my John walk through the cellar in search of some mislaid basket or box, whistling carelessly, without a suspicion that his favorite delicacy was coolly working out its own solidification under the inverted barrel on which I chanced to be leaning at his entrance. Any of the following receipts for custard ice cream may be frozen in like manner. Do not spare salt, and be sure your ice is finely cracked, and after the second beating do not let the air again into the freezer. If you cannot get dry rock salt, that which settles at the bottom of fish barrels will do just as well. Keep the freezer hidden from first to last by the ice heaped over it, except when you have to lift the lid on the occasions I have specified. Chocolate ice cream. 1 quart of cream, 1 pint new milk, 2 cups sugar, 2 eggs beaten very light, 5 tablespoons chocolate rubbed smooth in a little milk. Heat the milk almost to boiling and pour, by degrees, in with the beaten egg and sugar. Stir in the chocolate, beat well 3 minutes, and return to the inner kettle. Heat until it thickens well, stirring constantly. Take from the fire and set aside to cool. Many think a little vanilla an improvement. When the custard is cold, beat in the cream. Freeze. Almond ice cream. 3 ounces sweet almonds and 1 ounce of bitter, blanched, and when cold, pounded to a paste, a few at a time, in a Wedgewood mortar, adding 2 tablespoonfuls of rose water to prevent oiling, 3 pints cream, fresh and sweet, nearly 2 cups of sugar, 1 tablespoonful of arrowroot, wet up with cold water. Heat 1 pint cream almost to boiling, add the sugar, and when this is melted, the almonds. Simmer 10 minutes, stirring often. Remove from the fire and let it stand together 10 minutes longer in a covered vessel. Strain the cream, pressing the bag hard to get the full flavor of the almonds. Return to the inner saucepan and stir in the arrowroot until the cream thickens, say 5 minutes. When cold, beat very light with an egg whip, adding gradually the rest of the cream. It should be light in half an hour. Then freeze. If you wish to mold your cream in fancy shapes, open your freezer 2 hours after the second stirring and transfer the cream to a tight mold, having given it a third vigorous beating. Pack this down in ice and salt, and let it stand 2 hours longer than you would have done had it remained in the freezer. Coffee ice cream. 3 pints of cream, 1 cup of black coffee, very strong and clear, 2 cups sugar, 2 tablespoonfuls arrowroot, wet up with cold water. Heat half the cream nearly to boiling, stir in the sugar, and when this is melted, the coffee, then the arrowroot. Boil all together 5 minutes, stirring constantly. When cold, beat up very light, whipping in the rest of the cream by degrees. Then freeze. I cannot say certainly that this can be frozen without turning, although I see no reason why it should not, since the arrowroot gives it the consistency of custard. Italian cream. 2 pints of cream, 2 cups of sugar, 2 lemons, juice and grated peel, 2 tablespoonfuls of brandy. Sweeten the cream and beat in the lemons gradually, not to curdle it. Add the brandy and freeze it in a patent freezer, or by turning quickly. In turning the freezer, open twice during the operation to stir and beat the contents smooth. Lemon ice cream. 1 quart cream, 2 lemons, the juice of 1 and the grated peel of 1 1/2, 2 cups of sugar. Sweeten the cream, beat the lemon gradually into it, and put at once into the freezer. Freeze rapidly in a patent freezer, or the acid is apt to turn the milk. You may make orange ice cream in the same way. Pineapple ice cream. 1 quart of cream, 1 large ripe pineapple, 1 pound powdered sugar. Slice the pineapple thin and scatter the sugar between the slices. Cover it and let the fruit steep 3 hours. Then cut or chop it up in the syrup and strain it through a hair sieve or bag of double coarse lace. Beat gradually into the cream and freeze as rapidly as possible. You may, if you like, reserve a few pieces of pineapple, unsugared, cut into square bits, and stir them through the cream when half frozen. Peach ice cream is very nice made after the preceding receipt, with 2 or 3 handfuls of freshly cut bits of the fruit stirred in when the cream is half frozen. Raspberry or strawberry ice cream. 1 quart ripe sweet berries, 1 pound sugar, 1 quart fresh cream. Scatter half the sugar over the berries and let them stand 3 hours. Press and mash them and strain them through a thin muslin bag. Add the rest of the sugar, and when dissolved beat in the cream little by little. Freeze rapidly, opening the freezer, if it is not a patent one, several times to beat and stir. Or, you may have a pint of whole berries, unsugared, ready to stir in when the cream is frozen to the consistency of stiff mush. In this case, add a cup more sugar to the quart of crushed berries. Frozen custard with the fruit frozen in. 1 quart milk, 1 quart cream, 6 eggs, and 3 cups of sugar beaten up with the yolks. 1 pint fresh peaches, cut up small, or fresh ripe berries. Heat the quart of milk almost to boiling, and add gradually to the beaten yolks and sugar. Whip in the frothed whites, return to the custard kettle, and stir until it is a thick, soft custard. Let it get perfectly cold, beat in the cream, and freeze. If you let it freeze itself, stir in the fruit after the second beating. If you turn the freezer, when the custard is like congealed mush. Tutti Frutti ice cream. 1 pint of milk, 1 quart of cream, yolks of 5 eggs, beaten light with the sugar, 3 cups of sugar, 1 lemon, juice and grated peel, 1 glass of pale sherry, and 1/2 pound crystallized fruits, chopped. Heat the milk almost to boiling. Pour by degrees over the eggs and sugar, beating all together well. Return to the fire and boil 10 minutes, or until set into a good custard. When cold, beat in the cream, and half freeze before you stir in 1/2 pound of crystallized fruit, peaches, apricots, cherries, limes, etc., chopped very fine. Beat in with these the lemon and wine, cover again, and freeze hard. In all fruit ice creams, the beating of the custard should be very hard and thorough, if you would have them smooth. Lemon ice. 6 lemons, juice of all, and grated peel of 3. 1 large sweet orange, juice and rind. 1 pint of water. 1 pint of sugar. Squeeze out every drop of juice, and steep in it the rind of orange and lemons 1 hour. Strain, squeezing the bag dry. Mix in the sugar, and then the water. Stir until dissolved, and freeze by turning in a freezer, opening 3 times to beat up all together. Orange ice. 6 oranges, juice of all, and grated peel of 3. 2 lemons, the juice only. 1 pint of sugar dissolved in 1 pint of water. Prepare and freeze as you would lemon ice. Pineapple ice. 1 juicy ripe pineapple, peeled and cut small. Juice and grated peel of 1 lemon. 1 pint of sugar. 1 pint water, or a little less. Strew the sugar over the pineapple, and let it stand an hour. Mash all up together, and strain out the syrup through a hair sieve. Add the water, and freeze. Cherry ice. 1 quart cherries, with half the stones pounded in a Wedgewood mortar. 2 lemons, the juice only. 1 pint of water, in which dissolve 1 pint of sugar. 1 glass of fine brandy. Squeeze out the bruised cherries and stones, in a bag over the sugar. Add the water, then the brandy, and freeze. It will require a longer time to freeze than other ices, on account of the brandy. Currant and raspberry ice, fine. 1 quart red currants, 1 pint raspberries, red or white, 1 pint of water, 1 1/2 pint of sugar. Squeeze out the juice, mix in the sugar and water, and freeze. Strawberry or raspberry ice. 1 quart berries, extract the juice and strain. 1 pint sugar, dissolved in the juice. 1 lemon, juice only. 1/2 pint of water. End of section 45.
Section 46 of Common Sense in the Household. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Piotr Natter. Common Sense in the Household, a Manual of Practical Housewifery by Marion Harland. Section 46. Ripe Fruit for Dessert. Oranges may be put on whole in fruit baskets, or the skin be cut in eighths halfway down, separated from the fruit and curled inward, showing half the orange white and the other yellow. Or pass a sharp knife lightly round the fruit, midway between the stem and blossom end, cutting through the rind only. Slip the smooth, curved handle of a teaspoon carefully between the peel and body of the orange, and gently work it all around until both upper and lower halves are free, except at stem and blossom. Turn the rind, without tearing it, inside out, making a white cap at each end, the round white fruit between them. Salade d'orange. Pare and slice large sweet oranges. Sprinkle powdered sugar thickly over each slice, and pour a couple of glasses of wine on the top. Sprinkle powdered sugar over all, and serve at once, or the fruit will lose its freshness. You may omit the wine if you like. Do not let any fruit intended to be eaten fresh for dessert lie in the sugar longer than is absolutely necessary. It extracts the flavor and withers the pulp. Ambrosia. 8 fine sweet oranges, peeled and sliced. 1/2 grated cocoanut. 1/2 cup powdered sugar. Arrange the orange in a glass dish, scatter the grated cocoanut thickly over it, sprinkle this lightly with sugar, and cover with another layer of orange. Fill up the dish in this order, having cocoanut and sugar for the top layer. Serve at once. Apples. Wash and polish with a clean towel, and pile in a china fruit basket, with an eye to agreeable variety of color. Peaches and pears. Pick out the finest, handling as little as may be, and pile upon a salver or flat dish, with bits of ice between them, and ornament with peach leaves or fennel sprigs. One of the prettiest dishes of fruit I ever saw upon a dessert table was an open silver basket, wide at the top, heaped with rich red peaches and yellow Bartlett pears, interspersed with feathery bunches of green, which few of those who admired it knew for carrot tops. Wild white clematis wreathed the handle and showed here and there among the fruit, while scarlet and white verbenas nestled amid the green. Send around powdered sugar with the fruit, as many like to dip peaches and pears in it after paring and quartering them. Strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries. Never wash strawberries or raspberries that are intended to be eaten as fresh fruit. If they are so gritty as to require this process, keep them off the table. You will certainly ruin the flavor beyond repair if you wash them, and as certainly induce instant fermentation and endanger the coats of the eaters' stomachs, if, after profaning the exquisite delicacy of the fruit to this extent, you complete the evil work by covering them with sugar, and leaving them to leak their lives sourly away for 1 or 2 hours. Put them on the table in glass dishes, piling them high and lightly. Send around powdered sugar with them and cream, that the guests may help themselves. It is not economical, perhaps, but it is a healthful and pleasant style of serving them. I had almost said the only decent one. "But I do not know who picked them," cries Mrs. Fussy. "No, my dear madam, nor do you know who makes the baker's bread, or confectioner's cakes, creams, jellies, salads, etc., nor for that matter how the flour is manufactured out of which you conjure your dainty biscuits and pies. I was so foolish as to go into a flour mill once, and having seen a burly negro, naked to the waist, with his trousers rolled up to his knees, stand in a bank of fine family flour, a foot deep in the lowest part, on a July day, shovelling it into barrels for the market, I rushed into the outer air a sicker and a wiser woman. I know God made strawberries. Doubtless, says Bishop Bartlett, He could have made a better berry, but He never did. The picker's light touch cannot mar flavour or beauty, nor, were her fingers filthy as a chimney sweep's, could the delicate fruit suffer from them as from your barbarous baptism. You would like to know who picked them. I should inquire instead, who washed them, and in what? I recollect seeing a housekeeper who was afflicted with your inquiring turn of mind wash strawberries in a wash-hand basin. Currants and raspberries. Pick the currants from the stem, and mix them with an equal quantity of raspberries. Put into a glass bowl, and eat with powdered sugar. Frosted currants. Pick fine even bunches, and dip them one at a time into a mixture of frothed white of egg and a very little cold water. Drain them until nearly dry, and roll in pulverized sugar. Repeat the dip in the sugar once or twice, and lay them upon white paper to dry. They make a beautiful garnish for jellies and charlottes, and look well heaped in a dish by themselves or with other fruits. Plums and grapes are very nice frosted in the same way. End of section 46.
Section 47 of Common Sense in the Household. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Laura Langston. Common Sense in the Household, a Manual of Practical Housewifery by Marion Harland. Preserves. Use none but porcelain or good bell metal kettles for preserves and jellies. If the latter, clean thoroughly just before you put in the syrup or fruit. Scour with sand, then set it over the fire with a cupful of vinegar and a large handful of salt in it. Let this come to a boil, and scour the whole of the inside of the kettle with it. Do not let your preserves or anything else stand 1 moment in it after it is withdrawn from the fire. Fill the emptied kettle instantly with water and wash it perfectly clean, although you may mean to return the syrup to it again in 5 minutes. By observing these precautions, preserves and pickles made in bell metal may be rendered as good and wholesome as if the frailer porcelain be used. Use only fine sugar for nice preserves. Moist or dark sugar cannot be made to produce the same effect as dry white. Do not hurry any needful step in the process of preserving. Prepare your fruit with care, weigh accurately, and allow time enough to do your work well. Put up the preserves in small jars in preference to large, and when once made, keep them in a cool, dark closet that is perfectly dry. Keep jellies in small stone china jars or glass tumblers closely covered. You can procure at most china and glass stores or house furnishing establishments metal covers with elastic rims for these, which can be used from year to year. Cover jellies and jams with tissue paper, double and wet with brandy, pressed closely to the conserve before you put on the lid, or paste on the thick paper. Examine your shelves frequently and narrowly for a few weeks to see if your preserves are keeping well. If there is the least sign of fermentation, boil them over, adding more sugar. If jellies are not so firm after 6 or 8 hours as you would have them, set them in the sun with bits of window glass over them to keep out the dust and insects. Remove these at night and wipe off the moisture collected on the undersides. Repeat this every day until the jelly shrinks into firmness, filling up 1 cup from another as need requires. This method is far preferable to boiling down, which both injures the flavor and darkens the jelly. Preserved peaches. Weigh the fruit after it is pared and the stones extracted, and allow a pound of sugar to every 1 of peaches. Crack 1/4 of the stones, extract the kernels, break them to pieces and boil in just enough water to cover them, until soft, when set aside to steep in a covered vessel. Put a layer of sugar at the bottom of the kettle, then one of fruit, and so on until you have used up all of both. Set it where it will warm slowly until the sugar is melted and the fruit hot through. Then strain the kernel water and add it. Boil steadily until the peaches are tender and clear. Take them out with a perforated skimmer and lay upon large flat dishes, crowding as little as possible. Boil the syrup almost to a jelly, that is, until clear and thick, skimming off all the scum. Fill your jars 2/3 full of the peaches, pour on the boiling syrup, and when cold, cover with brandied tissue paper, then with cloth, lastly with thick paper tied tightly over them. The peaches should be ready to take off after half an hour's boiling. The syrup be boiled 15 minutes longer, fast, and often stirred to throw up the scum. A few slices of pineapple cut up with the peaches flavor them finely. Preserved pears are put up precisely as are peaches, but are only pared, not divided. Leave the stems on. Peach marmalade. Pare, stone, and weigh the fruit. Heat slowly to draw out the juice, stirring up often from the bottom with a wooden spoon. After it is hot, boil quickly, still stirring, 3/4 of an hour. Add then the sugar, allowing 3/4 of a pound to each pound of the fruit. Boil up well for 5 minutes, taking off every particle of scum. Add the juice of a lemon for every 3 pounds of fruit, and a very little water in which 1/4 of the kernels have been boiled and steeped. Stew all together 10 minutes, stirring to a smooth paste, and take from the fire. Put up hot in air-tight cans, or, when cold, in small stone or glass jars, with brandied tissue paper fitted neatly to the surface of the marmalade. A large ripe pineapple pared and cut up fine, and stirred with the peaches, is a fine addition to the flavor. Preserved quinces. Choose fine yellow quinces. Pare, quarter, and core them, saving both skins and cores. Put the quinces over the fire with just enough water to cover them, and simmer until they are soft, but not until they begin to break. Take them out carefully and spread them upon broad dishes to cool. Add the parings, seeds, and cores to the water in which the quinces were boiled, and stew, closely covered, for an hour. Strain through a jelly bag, and to every pint of this liquor allow a pound of sugar. Boil up and skim it. Put in the fruit and boil 15 minutes. Take all from the fire and pour into a large deep pan. Cover closely and let it stand 24 hours. Drain off the syrup and let it come to a boil. Put in the quinces carefully and boil another 1/4 of an hour. Take them up as dry as possible, and again spread out upon dishes, setting these in the hottest sunshine you can find. Boil the syrup until it begins to jelly. Fill the jars 2/3 full and cover with the syrup. The preserves should be of a fine red. Cover with brandied tissue paper. Preserved apples. Firm, well-flavored pippins or bellflower apples make an excellent preserve prepared in the same manner as quinces. A few quinces cut up among them, or the juice of 2 lemons to every 3 pounds of fruit, improves them. Quince marmalade. Pare, core, and slice the quinces, stewing the skins, cores, and seed in a vessel by themselves, with just enough water to cover them. When this has simmered long enough to extract all the flavor, and the parings are broken to pieces, strain off the water through a thick cloth. Put the quinces into the preserve kettle when this water is almost cold. Pour it over them and boil, stirring and mashing the fruit with a wooden spoon as it becomes soft. The juice of 2 oranges to every 3 pounds of the fruit imparts an agreeable flavor. When you have reduced all to a smooth paste, stir in a scant 3/4 pound of sugar for every pound of fruit. Boil 10 minutes more, stirring constantly. Take off, and when cool, put into small jars with brandied papers over them. Quince cheese is marmalade boiled down very thick, packed into small pots. It will turn out as firm as cheese and can be cut in slices for luncheon or tea. Apple butter. This is generally made by the large quantity. Boil down a kettle full of cider to 2/3 the original quantity. Pare, core, and slice juicy apples, and put as many into the cider as it will cover. Boil slowly, stirring often with a flat stick, and when the apples are tender to breaking, take them out with a perforated skimmer, draining well against the sides of the kettle. Put in a second supply of apples and stew them soft, as many as the cider will hold. Take from the fire, pour all together into a tub or large crock, cover and let it stand 12 hours. Then return to the kettle and boil down, stirring all the while until it is the consistency of soft soap and brown in color. You may spice to taste if you please. Keep in stone jars in a dry, cool place. It should keep all winter. Preserved crab apples. The red Siberian crab is best for this purpose. Pick out those that are nearly perfect, leaving the stems on, and put into a preserve kettle with enough warm water to cover them. Heat this to boiling slowly and simmer until the skins break. Drain, cool, and skin them. Then with a penknife extract the cores through the blossom ends. Weigh them. Allow 1 1/4 pounds of sugar and a teacupful of water to every pound of fruit. Boil the water and sugar together until the scum ceases to rise. Put in the fruit, cover the kettle, and simmer until the apples are a clear red and tender. Take out with a skimmer, spread upon dishes to cool and harden. Add to the syrup the juice of 1 lemon to 3 pounds of fruit, and boil until clear and rich. Fill your jars 3/4 full of the apples, pour the syrup in, and, when cool, tie up. Preserved green gages and large purple plums. Weigh the fruit and scald in boiling water to make the skins come off easily. Let them stand in a large bowl an hour after they are peeled, that the juice may exude. Drain this off, lay the plums in the kettle, alternately with layers of sugar, allowing pound for pound. Pour the juice over the top and heat slowly to a boil. Take out the plums at this point very carefully, with a perforated skimmer, draining them well through it, and spread upon broad dishes in the sun. Boil the syrup until thick and clear, skimming it faithfully. Return the plums to this and boil 10 minutes. Spread out again until cool and firm, keeping the syrup hot on the fire. Fill your jars 3/4 full of the fruit. Pour on the scalding syrup, cover to keep in the heat, and, when cold, tie up. Or, if you do not care to take the trouble of peeling the fruit, prick it in several places with a needle and proceed as directed. Unique preserves. Gather young cucumbers a little longer than your middle finger and lay in strong brine 1 week. Wash them and soak a day and a night in fair water, changing this 4 times. Line a bell metal kettle with vine leaves, lay in the cucumbers, with a little alum scattered among them. Fill up with clear water, cover with vine leaves, then with a close lid, and green as for pickles. Do not let them boil. When well greened, drop in ice water. When perfectly cold, wipe, and with a small knife slit down one side, dig out the seeds, stuff with a mixture of chopped raisins and citron. Sew up the incision with fine thread. Weigh them and make a syrup, allowing 1 pound of sugar for every 1 of cucumbers, with a pint of water. Heat to a lively boil, skim and drop in the fruit. Simmer half an hour, take out and spread upon a dish in the sun while you boil down the syrup, with a few slices of ginger root added. When thick, put in the cucumbers again. Simmer 5 minutes and put up in glass jars, tying them up when cold. Damsons are put up in the same manner as plums, but pricked instead of skinned. Preserved orange peel. Very nice. Weigh the oranges whole, and allow pound for pound. Peel the oranges neatly, and cut the rind into narrow shreds. Boil until tender, changing the water twice, and replenishing with hot from the kettle. Squeeze the strained juice of the oranges over the sugar. Let this heat to a boil, put in the shreds, and boil 20 minutes. Lemon peel can be preserved in the same way, allowing more sugar. Orange marmalade. Allow pound for pound. Pare half the oranges and cut the rind into shreds. Boil in 3 waters until tender and set aside. Grate the rind of the remaining oranges. Take off and throw away every bit of the thick white inner skin. Quarter all the oranges and take out the seeds. Chop or cut them into small pieces. Drain all the juice that will come away, without pressing them, over the sugar. Heat this, stirring until the sugar is dissolved, adding a very little water, unless the oranges are very juicy. Boil and skim 5 or 6 minutes, put in the boiled shreds, and cook 10 minutes. Then the chopped fruit and grated peel, and boil 20 minutes longer. When cold, put into small jars, tied up with bladder or with paper next the fruit, cloths dipped in wax over all. A nicer way still is to put away in tumblers with self-adjusting metal tops. Press brandied tissue paper down closely to the fruit. Lemon marmalade is made as you would prepare orange, allowing 1 1/4 pounds of sugar to 1 pound of the fruit, and using but half the grated peel. Preserved pineapple. Pare, cut into slices, take out the core of each one, and weigh, allowing pound for pound of sugar and fruit. Put in alternate layers in the kettle and pour in water, allowing a teacupful to each pound of sugar. Heat to a boil, take out the pineapple, and spread upon dishes in the sun. Boil and skim the syrup half an hour. Return the pineapple to the kettle and boil 15 minutes. Take it out, pack in wide-mouthed jars, pour on the scalding syrup, cover to keep in the heat, and when cold, tie up, first putting brandied tissue paper upon the top. Pineapple marmalade. Pare, slice, core, and weigh the pineapple, then cut into small bits. Make a syrup of a teacup of water to 2 pounds of sugar. Melt and heat to a boil. Heat the chopped pineapple in a vessel set within one of boiling water, covering it closely to keep in the flavor. When it is smoking hot all through and begins to look clear, add to the syrup. Boil together half an hour, stirring all the while, or until it is a clear, bright paste. Preserved citron or watermelon rind. Pare off the green skin and the soft white inner rind. Cut into strips or into fanciful shapes. Allow 1 1/4 pounds of sugar to each pound of rind. Line your kettle with vine leaves and fill with the rind, scattering a little pulverized alum over each layer. Cover with vine leaves, 3 thick. Pour on water enough to reach and wet these, and lay a closed lid on the top of the kettle. Let all steam together for 3 hours, but the water must not actually boil. Take out your rind, which should be very well greened by this process, and throw at once into very cold water. It should lie and soak, changing the water every hour, for 4 hours. For the syrup, allow 2 cups of water to 1 1/4 pounds of sugar. Boil and skim it until no more scum comes up. Put in the rind and simmer gently nearly an hour. Take it out and spread upon dishes in the sun until firm and almost cool. Simmer in the syrup for half an hour. Spread out again, and when firm, put into a large bowl, and pour over it the scalding syrup. 12 hours later, put the syrup again over the fire, adding the juice of a lemon and a tiny strip of ginger root for every pound of rind. Boil down until thick. Pack the rind in jars and pour over it the syrup. Tie up when cool. A very handsome sweetmeat, although rather insipid in flavor. The reader can judge whether, as the charity boy said of the alphabet, and the senior Weller of matrimony, it is worth while to go through so much and get so little. Preserved ginger. Pare the roots of fresh green ginger and lay in cold water 15 minutes. Boil in 3 waters, changing the hot for cold every time until very tender. Drain and lay in ice water. For the syrup, allow 1 1/4 pounds of sugar for every pound of ginger, and a cupful of water for each pound of sugar. Boil and skim until the scum ceases to rise. When the syrup is cold, wipe the ginger dry and drop it in. Let it stand 24 hours. Drain off and reheat the syrup. This time put the ginger in when blood warm. Do not look at it again for 2 days. Then reboil the syrup and pour over the ginger scalding hot. In a week, drain off once more, boil, and add again, while hot, to the ginger. Cover closely. It will be fit for use in a fortnight. Preserved cherries. Stone the cherries, preserving every drop of juice. Weigh the fruit, allowing pound for pound of sugar. Put a layer of fruit for one of sugar until all is used up. Pour over the juice and boil gently until the syrup begins to thicken. The short stem red cherries or the morellas are best for preserves. Sweet cherries will not do. Preserved strawberries. Pound for pound, put them in a preserving kettle over a slow fire until the sugar melts. Boil 25 minutes fast. Take out the fruit in a perforated skimmer and fill a number of small cans 3/4 full. Boil and skim the syrup 5 minutes longer. Fill up the jars and seal while hot. Keep in a cool, dry place. Strawberry jam. For every pound of fruit, 3/4 of a pound of sugar. 1 pint red currant juice to every 4 pounds strawberries. Boil the juice of the currants with the strawberries half an hour, stirring all the time. Add the sugar when you have dipped out nearly all the juice, leaving the fruit quite dry, and boil up rapidly for about 20 minutes, skimming carefully. Put in small jars with brandied tissue paper over the top. You can omit the currant juice, but the flavor will not be so fine. Raspberry jam. 3/4 pound of sugar to every pound fruit. Put the fruit on alone, or with the addition of a pint of currant juice to every 4 pounds of fruit. Boil half an hour, mashing and stirring well. Dip out most of the boiling juice before adding sugar and cook 20 minutes more. Blackberry jam is very nice made as above, leaving out the currant juice. Gooseberry jam is made in the same manner as raspberry, only the currant juice is omitted, and the gooseberries boiled 1 hour without the fruit, and another after it is put in. The fruit must be ripe. Ripe tomato preserves. 7 pounds round yellow or egg tomatoes, peeled. 7 pounds sugar and juice of 3 lemons. Let them stand together overnight. Drain off the syrup and boil it, skimming well. Put in the tomatoes and boil gently 20 minutes. Take out the fruit with a perforated skimmer and spread upon dishes. Boil the syrup down until it thickens, adding, just before you take it up, the juice of 3 lemons. Put the fruit into the jars and fill up with hot syrup. When cold, seal or tie up. Green tomato preserves. Good. 8 pounds small green tomatoes. Pierce each with a fork. 7 pounds sugar. 4 lemons, the juice only. 1 ounce ginger and mace, mixed. Heat all together slowly, and boil until the fruit is clear. Take it from the kettle in a perforated skimmer and spread upon dishes to cool. Boil the syrup thick. Put the fruit into jars and cover with hot syrup. Preserved figs. The weight of ripe figs in sugar. Peel of 1 lemon and juice of 2. A little ginger. Cover the figs with cold water for 12 hours. Then simmer in water enough to cover them until tender, and spread out upon a sieve to cool and harden. Make a syrup of the sugar, and a cup of cold water for every pound. Boil until clear of scum, put in the figs, and simmer 10 minutes. Take them out and spread upon dishes in the sun. Add the lemons and ginger, boil the syrup thick. Give the figs another boil of 15 minutes, and fill the jars 3/4 of the way to the top. Fill up with boiling syrup, cover, and when cold, seal up. Baked apples. Cut out the blossom end of sweet apples, Campfields or pound sweets, with a sharp penknife. Wash, but do not pare them. Pack them in a large pudding dish. Pour a cupful of water in the bottom, cover closely with another dish or pan. Set in a moderate oven and steam until tender all through. Pour the liquor over them while hot, and repeat this as they cool. Set on the ice several hours before tea, and when you are ready, transfer them to a glass dish, pouring the juice over them again. Eat with powdered sugar and cream. Apples baked in this way are more tender and digestible, and better flavored than those baked in an open vessel. Campfields are particularly good. Apples stewed whole. Pare, and with a small knife extract the cores of fine, juicy apples that are not too tart. Put into a deep dish with just enough water to cover them. Cover and bake or stew in a moderate oven until they are tender and clear. Take out the apples, put in a bowl, and cover to keep hot. Put the juice into a saucepan with a cupful of sugar for 12 apples, and boil half an hour. Season with mace, ginger, or whole cloves, adding the spice 10 minutes before you remove the syrup from the fire. Pour scalding over the apples and cover until cold. Eat with cream. Baked pears. Sweet pears may be baked just as sweet apples are, for example, steamed without being pared or cored. Or, if large, cut in half, put into a deep dish with a very little water, sprinkle them with sugar, and put a few cloves or bits of cinnamon or a pinch of ginger among them. Cover closely and bake until tender. Stewed pears. If small and ripe, cut out the blossom end without paring or coring. Put into a saucepan with enough water to cover them, and stew until tender. Add a half cupful of sugar for every quart of pears, and stew all together 10 minutes. Take out the pears, lay in a covered bowl to keep warm. Add to the syrup a little ginger or a few cloves. Boil 15 minutes longer, and pour over the fruit hot. Or, if the pears are not quite ripe but hard and disposed to be tough, peel them, cut out the blossom end, leaving on the stems, and stew until tender in enough water to cover them. Take them out, set by in a covered dish to keep warm. Add to the liquor in the saucepan an equal quantity of the best molasses and a little ginger. Boil half an hour, skim, and return the pears to the saucepan. Stew all together 20 minutes and pour out. These are very good and will keep a week or more even in warm weather. I have canned them while boiling hot and kept them sweet a whole year. Baked quinces. Pare and quarter, extract the seeds and stew the fruit in clear water until the straw will pierce them. Put into a baking dish with a half cupful of sugar to every 8 quinces. Pour over them the liquor in which they were boiled, cover closely, and steam in the oven 1 hour. Take out the quinces, lay them in a covered bowl to keep warm. Return the syrup to the saucepan and boil 20 minutes. Pour over the quinces and set away covered to cool. Eat cold. End of section 47. Recording by Laura Langston. Section 48 of Common Sense in the Household. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Laura Langston. Common Sense in the Household, a Manual of Practical Housewifery by Marion Harland. Fruit jellies. Currant, blackberry, strawberry, etc. Put the fruit into a stone jar. Set this in a kettle of tepid water, and put it upon the fire. Let it boil closely covered until the fruit is broken to pieces. Strain, pressing the bag, a stout coarse one, hard, putting in but a few handfuls at a time, and between each squeezing turning it inside out to scald off the pulp and skins. To each pint of juice allow a pound of sugar. Set the juice on alone to boil, and while it is warming divide the sugar into several different portions, and put into shallow pie dishes or pans that will fit in your ovens. Heat in these, opening the ovens now and then to stir it and prevent burning. Boil the juice just 20 minutes from the moment it begins fairly to boil. By this time the sugar should be so hot you cannot bury your hand in it. Should it melt around the edges, do not be alarmed. The burned parts will only form into lumps in the syrup and can easily be taken out. Throw the sugar into the boiling juice, stirring rapidly all the while. It will hiss as it falls in and melt very quickly. Withdraw your spoon when you are sure it is dissolved. Let the jelly just come to a boil, to make all certain, and take the kettle instantly from the fire. Roll your glasses or cups in hot water and fill with the scalding liquid. If these directions be strictly followed, and the fruit is at the proper state of ripeness, there need be no dread of failure. I have often had the jelly form before I filled the last glass. I wish it were in my power, by making known the advantages of the process I have described, to put an end to the doubts and anxieties attendant upon the old-fashioned method of boiling jelly into a preserve. This plan is so simple and safe, the jelly made so superior in flavor and color to that produced by boiling down juice and fruit, that no one who has ever tried both ways can hesitate to give it the preference. I have put up jelly in no other way for 18 years and have never failed once. Strawberry jelly should have a little lemon juice added to that of the fruit. Both it and blackberry and very ripe raspberry jelly are apt to be less firm than that made from more tart fruits. Still, do not boil it. Set it in the sun as I have directed at the beginning of the section upon preserves and fruit jellies, filling 1 cup from another as the contents shrink. The sun will boil it down with less waste and less injury to color and taste than the fire will. Cooking jelly always darkens it. Put brandied tissue paper over the top of each glass when cold and firm. Paste a thick paper over it, and keep in a dry place. Raspberry and Currant Jelly. To 2 parts red raspberries or black caps, put 1 of red currants, and proceed as with other berry jelly. The flavor is exquisite. This jelly is especially nice for cake. Wild cherry and currant jelly. 2/3 wild cherries, stones and all, and 1 of red currants, a pound of sugar to a pint of juice, and make as you do plain currant jelly. This, besides being very palatable and an excellent table jelly, is highly medicinal, good for coughs and any weakness of the digestive organs. I put it up first as an experiment, and because I chanced to have the cherries. Now I would not pass the winter without it, unless obliged to do so by a failure of the fruit crop. Peach Jelly. Crack 1/3 of the kernels and put them in the jar with the peaches, which should be pared, stoned, and sliced. Heat in a pot of boiling water, stirring from time to time until the fruit is well broken. Strain, and to every pint of peach juice add the juice of a lemon. Measure again, allowing a pound of sugar to a pint of liquid. Heat the sugar very hot, and add when the juice has boiled 20 minutes. Let it come to a boil and take instantly from the fire. This is very fine for jelly cake. Green Fox Grape Jelly is made after the receipt for currant jelly, only allowing 1.5 pounds of sugar to a pint of juice. Ripe grapes require but pound for pint. Quince Jelly. Pare and slice the quinces, and add for every 5 pounds of fruit a cup of water. Put peelings, cores, and all into a stone jar. Set this in a pot of boiling water, and, when the fruit is soft and broken, proceed as with other jellies. Crab Apple Jelly. Cut Siberian crab apples to pieces, but do not pare or remove the seeds. The latter impart a peculiarly pleasant flavor to the fruit. Put into a stone jar, set in a pot of hot water, and let it boil 8 or 9 hours. Leave in the jar all night, covered closely. Next morning squeeze out the juice, allow pound for pint, and manage as you do currant jelly. Should the apples be very dry, add a cup of water for every 6 pounds of fruit. There is no finer jelly than this in appearance and in taste. End of section 48. Recording by Laura Langston.
Section 49 of Common Sense in the Household. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Betty B. Common Sense in the Household, a Manual of Practical Housewifery by Marion Harland. Canned Fruits and Vegetables. Within a few years canned fruits have, in a great measure, superseded preserves. They are cheaper, more wholesome, and far less difficult to prepare. Attention to a few general rules will ensure success to every housekeeper who sensibly prefers to put up her own season's supply of these to purchasing those for double the cost, which are not nearly so good. First, examine cans and elastics narrowly before you begin operations. See that the screw is in order, the can without crack or nick, the elastic firm and closely fitting. Secondly, have the fruit boiling hot when sealed. Have upon the range or stove a pan in which each empty can is set to be filled after it is rolled in hot water. Lay elastic and top close to your hand. Fill the can to overflowing, remembering that the fruit will shrink as it cools, and that a vacuum invites the air to enter. Clap on the top without the loss of a second, screw as tightly as you can, and as the contents and the can cool, screw again and again to fit the contraction of metal and glass. Thirdly, if you use glass cans, and they are cheapest in the end, for you can use them year after year, getting new elastics when you need them, keep them in a cool, dark place, and dry as well as cool. The light will cause them to ferment and also change the color. Canned berries. Heat slowly to boiling in a large kettle. When they begin to boil, add sugar in the proportion of 1 tablespoonful to each quart of fruit. Before doing this, however, if there is much juice in the kettle, dip out the surplus with a dipper or cup. It will only increase the number of cans to be filled without real advantage to you. Leave the berries almost dry before putting in the sugar. This will make syrup enough. Boil all together 15 minutes and can. Huckleberries, grapes, blackberries, currants, raspberries, cherries, and strawberries put up in this way are very good, eaten as you would preserves, and make pies which are scarcely inferior to those filled with fresh fruit. Canned peaches. Pare, cut in half, and stone, taking care not to break the fruit. Drop each piece in cold water so soon as it is pared. The large white freestone peaches are nicest for this purpose. Firmness of texture is a desideratum. The fruit should be ripe but not soft. Allow a heaping tablespoonful of sugar to each quart of fruit, scattering it between the layers. Fill your kettle and heat slowly to a boil. Boil 3 minutes, just to assure yourself that every piece of fruit is heated through. Can and seal. It is safe to put a cupful of water in the bottom of the kettle before packing it with fruit, lest the lower layers should burn. Canned pears. For the finer varieties, such as the Bartlett and Seckel, prepare a syrup, allowing a pint of pure water and 1/4 pound of sugar to a quart of fruit. While this is heating, peel the pears, dropping each, as it is pared, into a pan of clear water, lest the color should change by exposure to the air. When the syrup has come to a fast boil, put in the pears carefully, not to bruise them, and boil until they look clear and can be easily pierced by a fork. Have the cans ready, rolled in hot water, packed with the pears, and filled to overflowing with the scalding syrup, which must be kept on the fire all the while, and seal. The tougher and more common pears must be boiled in water until tender, thrown while warm into the hot syrup, then allowed to boil 10 minutes before they are canned. Apples may be treated in either of the above ways, as their texture may seem to demand. Canned plums. Prick with a needle to prevent bursting. Prepare a syrup allowing a gill of pure water and 1/4 pound of sugar to every 3 quarts of fruit. When the sugar is dissolved and the water blood warm, put in the plums. Heat slowly to a boil. Let them boil 5 minutes, not fast, or they will break badly. Fill up the jars with plums, pour in the scalding syrup until it runs down the sides, and seal. Greengages are very fine put up in this way, also damsons for pies. Canned tomatoes. "I don't hold with any of these new fangled notions," said an old lady to me when I mentioned that my canning was over for the summer. "I was beguiled 2 years ago into putting up some tomatoes in cans, and if I am forgiven for that folly, I'll never tempt Providence in the same manner again. They didn't keep then? Keep! They spoiled in a week. 'Twas no more'n I expected, and deserved for meddling with such a humbug." "Perhaps you did not follow the directions closely." "Indeed I did. I cooked the tormented things, and seasoned 'em with butter and salt, all ready for the table, and screwed the tops down tight, but in course they spoiled." "Were you careful to put them into the cans boiling hot?" "'Twould have cracked the glass. I let 'em get nice and cold first. I didn't suppose it made any difference about such a trifle as that." Poor old lady! I think of her and her mighty temptation of Providence whenever I can tomatoes, for heat does make a difference, all the difference in the world in this sort of work. Pour boiling water over the tomatoes to loosen the skins. Remove these, drain off all the juice that will come away without pressing hard. Put them into a kettle and heat slowly to a boil. Your tomatoes will look much nicer if you remove all the hard parts before putting them on the fire, and rub the pulp soft with your hands. Boil 10 minutes, dip out the surplus liquid, pour the tomatoes boiling hot into the cans, and seal. Keep in a cool, dark place. Canned tomatoes and corn. Boil the corn on the cob, when it is in nice order for roasting, 20 minutes over a good fire, and cut off while hot. Have your tomatoes skinned and rubbed to a smooth pulp. Put in 2 measures of them for every one of the cut corn. Salt as for the table, stirring it well in, and bring to a hard boil. Then can quickly, and as soon as they are cold set away in a cool, dark place. Preserved green corn. Boil on the cob until the milk ceases to flow, when the grain is pricked. Cut off the corn and pack in stone jars in the following order: a layer of salt at the bottom, 1/2 inch deep, then one of corn 2 inches in depth, another 1/2 inch of salt, and so on until the jar is nearly filled. Let the topmost layer of salt be double the depth of the others, and pour over all melted, not hot lard. Press upon this, when nearly hard, thick white paper cut to fit the mouth of the jar. Keep in a cool place. Soak overnight before using it. Green corn is difficult to can, but I know it will keep well if put up in this way, and, strange to tell, be so fresh after the night's soaking as to require salt when you boil it for the table. Should the top layer be musty, dig lower still, and you will probably be rewarded for the search. End of section 49. Section 50 of Common Sense in the Household. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Betty B. Common Sense in the Household, a Manual of Practical Housewifery by Marion Harland. Brandied Fruits and Candies. Brandied fruits. Brandied peaches or pears. 4 pounds fruit, 4 pounds sugar, 1 pint best white brandy. Make a syrup of the sugar and enough water to dissolve it. Let this come to a boil, put the fruit in and boil 5 minutes. Having removed the fruit carefully, let the syrup boil 15 minutes longer, or until it thickens well. Add the brandy and take the kettle at once from the fire. Pour the hot syrup over the fruit and seal. If, after the fruit is taken from the fire, a reddish liquor oozes from it, drain this off before adding the clear syrup. Put up in glass jars. Peaches and pears should be peeled for brandying. Plums should be pricked and watched carefully for fear of bursting. Brandied cherries or berries. Make a syrup of a pound of sugar and a half gill of water for every 2 pounds of fruit. Heat to boiling, stirring to prevent burning, and pour over the berries while warm, not hot. Let them stand together an hour. Put all into a preserving kettle and heat slowly. Boil 5 minutes. Take out the fruit with a perforated skimmer and boil the syrup 20 minutes. Add a pint of brandy for every 5 pounds of fruit. Pour over the berries hot and seal. Candies. Molasses candy. 1 quart good molasses, 1/2 cup vinegar, 1 cup sugar, butter the size of an egg, 1 teaspoonful saleratus, baking soda. Dissolve the sugar in the vinegar, mix with the molasses and boil, stirring frequently until it hardens when dropped from the spoon into cold water. Then stir in the butter and soda, the latter dissolved in hot water. Flavor to your taste, give one hard final stir, and pour into buttered dishes. As it cools, cut into squares for taffy, or, while soft enough to handle, pull white into sticks, using only the buttered tips of your fingers for that purpose. Sugar candy. 6 cups of sugar, 1 cup of vinegar, 1 cup of water, tablespoonful of butter, put in at the last, with 1 teaspoonful saleratus dissolved in hot water. Boil fast without stirring an hour, or until it crisps in cold water. Pull white with the tips of your fingers. Since children must eat candy, this is the best you can give them. It is very nice. Flavor to taste. End of section 50. Section 51 of Common Sense in the Household. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Betty B. Common Sense in the Household, a Manual of Practical Housewifery by Marion Harland. Pickles. Use none but the best cider vinegar. Especially avoid the sharp, colorless liquid sold under that name. It is weak sulphuric acid, warranted to riddle the coat of any stomach, even that of an ostrich, if that bird were so bereft of the instinct of self-preservation as to make a lunch of bright green cucumber pickle 7 times a week. If you boil pickles in bell metal, do not let them stand in it 1 moment when it is off the fire, and see for yourself that it is perfectly clean and newly scoured before the vinegar is put in. Keep pickles in glass or hard stoneware. Look them over every month, remove the soft ones, and if there are several of these, drain off and scald the vinegar, adding a cup of sugar for each gallon, and pour hot over the pickles. If they are keeping well, throw in a liberal handful of sugar for every gallon and tie them up again. This tends to preserve them and mellows the sharpness of the vinegar. This does not apply to sweet pickle. Pickle well made is better when a year old than at the end of 6 months. I have eaten walnut pickle 10 years old that was very fine. Keep your pickles well covered with vinegar. If you use ground spices, tie them up in thin muslin bags. Cucumber or gherkin pickle. Choose small cucumbers or gherkins for this purpose. They are more tender and look better on the table. Reject all over a finger in length and every one that is misshapen or specked, however slightly. Pack in a stone jar or wooden bucket in layers, strewing salt thickly between these. Cover the top layer out of sight with salt and pour on cold water enough to cover all. Lay a small plate or round board upon them with a clean stone to keep it down. You may leave them in the brine for a week or a month, stirring up from the bottom every other day. If the longer time, be sure your salt and water is strong enough to bear up an egg. If you raise your own cucumbers, pick them every day and drop in the pickle. When you are ready to put them up, throw away the brine, with any cucumbers that may have softened under the process, and lay the rest in cold fresh water for 24 hours. Change the water then for fresh and leave it for another day. Have a kettle ready, lined with green vine leaves, and lay the pickles evenly within it, scattering powdered alum over the layers. A bit of alum as large as a pigeon egg will be enough for a 2-gallon kettleful. Fill with cold water, cover with vine leaves, 3 deep. Put a close lid or inverted pan over all, and steam over a slow fire 5 or 6 hours, not allowing the water to boil. When the pickles are a fine green, remove the leaves and throw the cucumbers into very cold water. Let them stand in it while you prepare the vinegar. To 1 gallon allow a cup of sugar, 3 dozen whole black peppers, the same of cloves, half as much allspice, 1 dozen blades of mace. Boil 5 minutes, put the cucumbers into a stone jar, and pour the vinegar over them scalding hot. Cover closely. 2 days afterwards scald the vinegar again and return to the pickles. Repeat this process 3 times more at intervals of 2, 4, and 6 days. Cover with a stoneware or wooden top, tie stout cloth over this, and keep in a cool, dry place. They will be ready for eating in 2 months. Examine every few weeks. Pickled mangoes. Young musk or nutmeg melons. English mustard seed 2 handfuls, mixed with scraped horseradish 1 handful. Mace and nutmeg pounded 1 teaspoonful. Chopped garlic 2 teaspoonfuls. A little ginger. Whole peppercorns 1 dozen. 1/2 tablespoonful of ground mustard to a pint of the mixture. 1 teaspoonful sugar to the same quantity. 1 teaspoonful best salad oil to the same. 1 teaspoonful celery seed. Cut a slit in the side of the melon. Insert your finger and extract all the seeds. If you cannot get them out in this way, cut a slender piece out, saving it to replace, but the slit is better. Lay the mangoes in strong brine for 3 days. Drain off the brine and freshen in pure water 24 hours. Green as you would cucumbers, and lay in cold water until cold and firm. Fill with the stuffing, sew up the slit, or tie up with pack thread. Pack in a deep stone jar, and pour scalding vinegar over them. Repeat this process 3 times more at intervals of 2 days. Then tie up and set away in a cool, dry place. They will not be ripe under 4 months, but are very fine when they are. They will keep several years. Pepper mangoes are put up in the same way, using green peppers that are full grown, but not tinged with red. They are very good, but your fingers will smart after thrusting them into the peppers to pull out the seeds. For this purpose I have used, first, a small penknife, to cut the core from its attachment to the stem end of the pepper, then a smooth bit of stick to pry open the slit in the side and work out the loose core or bunch of seeds. By the exercise of a little ingenuity you may spare yourself all suffering from this cause. Should your fingers burn badly, anoint them with sweet oil and wear gloves that night. Cream will also allay the smart. Pickled cabbage (yellow). 2 gallons vinegar, 1 pint white mustard seed, 4 ounce ginger, 3 ounce peppercorns, 1 ounce allspice pounded fine, 2 ounce cloves, 1 ounce mace, 1 ounce nutmeg, 2 ounce turmeric, 1 large handful of garlic chopped, 1 handful scraped horseradish, 4 pounds sugar, 2 ounce celery seed, 3 lemons sliced thin. Mix all and set in the sun for 3 days. To prepare the cabbage, cut in quarters, leaving off the outer and green leaves, and put in a kettle of boiling brine. Cook 3 minutes, take out, drain, and cover thickly with salt. Spread out in the sun to dry, then shake off the salt and cover with cold vinegar in which has been steeped enough turmeric to color it well. Leave it in this 2 weeks, to draw out the salt and to plump the cabbage. They are then ready to pack down in the seasoned vinegar. Do not use under 6 weeks or 2 months. Pickled cabbage (purple). Quarter the cabbage, lay in a wooden tray, sprinkle thickly with salt, and set in the cellar until next day. Drain off the brine, wipe dry, lay in the sun 2 hours, and cover with cold vinegar for 12 hours. Prepare the pickle by seasoning enough vinegar to cover the cabbage with equal quantities of mace, cloves, whole white peppers, a cup of sugar to every gallon of vinegar, and a teaspoonful of celery seed for every pint. Pack the cabbage in a stone jar, boil the vinegar and spices 5 minutes, and pour on hot. Cover and set away in a cool, dry place. This will be ripe in 6 weeks. Pickled onions. Peel the onions, which should be fine white ones, not too large. Let them stand in strong brine for 4 days, changing it twice. Heat more brine to a boil, throw in the onions, and boil 3 minutes. Throw them at once into cold water and leave them there 4 hours. Pack in jars, interspersing with whole mace, white peppercorns, and cloves. Fill up with scalding vinegar, in which you have put a cupful of sugar for every gallon. Cork while hot. They will be ready for use in a month, but will be better at the end of 3 months. Green beans and radish pods. Take young French or string beans and radish pods just before they change color, green and pickle as you do cucumbers and gherkins. Nasturtium seed. Take the green seed after the flower has dried off. Lay in salt and water 2 days, in cold water 1 day. Pack in bottles and cover with scalding vinegar, seasoned with mace and white peppercorns, and sweetened slightly with white sugar. Cork and set away 4 weeks before you use them. They are an excellent substitute for capers. Pickled butternuts and walnuts. Gather them when soft enough to be pierced by a pin. Lay them in strong brine 5 days, changing this twice in the meantime. Drain and wipe them with a coarse cloth. Pierce each by running a large needle through it, and lay in cold water for 6 hours. To each gallon of vinegar allow a cup of sugar, 3 dozen each of whole cloves and black peppercorns, half as much allspice, and a dozen blades of mace. Boil 5 minutes, pack the nuts in small jars, and pour over them scalding hot. Repeat this twice within a week, tie up and set away. They will be good to eat in a month, and very good too. Pickled cauliflower. Pick the whitest and closest bunches. Cut into small sprays or clusters. Plunge into a kettle of scalding brine and boil 3 minutes. Take them out, lay upon a sieve or a cloth, sprinkle thickly with salt, and when dry, brush this off. Cover with cold vinegar for 2 days, setting the jar in the sun. Then pack carefully in glass or stoneware jars and pour over them scalding vinegar seasoned thus. To 1 gallon allow a cup of white sugar, a dozen blades of mace, a tablespoonful of celery seed, 2 dozen white peppercorns, and some bits of red pepper pods, a tablespoonful of coriander seed, and the same of whole mustard. Boil 5 minutes. Repeat the scalding once a week for 3 weeks. Tie up and set away. Keep the cauliflowers under the vinegar by putting a small plate on top. Sliced cucumber pickle. Very nice. 2 dozen large cucumbers sliced and boiled in vinegar enough to cover them 1 hour. Set aside in the hot vinegar. To each gallon of cold vinegar allow 1 pound sugar, 1 tablespoonful of cinnamon, 1 teaspoonful ginger, 1 teaspoonful black pepper, 1 teaspoonful celery seed, 1 teaspoonful of mace, 1 teaspoonful allspice, 1 teaspoonful cloves, 1 tablespoonful turmeric, 1 tablespoonful horseradish scraped, 1 tablespoonful garlic sliced, 1/2 teaspoonful cayenne pepper. Put in the cucumbers and stew 2 hours. The pickle will be ready for use as soon as it is cold. Pickled watermelon rind. Extremely nice. Equal weight of rind and white sugar. 1/2 ounce white ginger to a gallon of pickle. 1 pint vinegar to every pound of sugar. 1 tablespoonful turmeric to a gallon of pickle. Mace, cloves, and cinnamon to taste. Take the thickest rind you can get, pare off the hard green rind, also the soft inner pulp. Lay the pieces, narrow strips or fanciful cuttings, in brine strong enough to float an egg, and let them remain in it 10 days. Then soak in fair water, changing it every day for 10 days. Cover them with clear water in a preserving kettle, heat slowly and boil 5 minutes. Take them out and plunge instantly into ice water. Leave them in this until next day. Give them another gentle boil of 5 minutes in strong alum water. Simmer carefully, as a hard boil will injure them. Change directly from the alum to the ice water again, and do not disturb them for 4 hours. After a third boil of 5 minutes, let them remain all night in the last water to make them tender. Next day add to enough water to cover the rind sufficient sugar to make it quite sweet, but not a syrup. Simmer the rinds in this 10 minutes, throw the water away, and spread them upon dishes to cool. Meanwhile, prepare a second syrup, allowing sugar equal in weight to the rind, and half an ounce of sliced white ginger to a gallon of the pickle, with a cup of water for every 2 pounds of sugar. When the sugar is melted and the syrup quite hot, but not boiling, put in the rinds and simmer until they look quite clear. Take it out, spread upon the dishes again, while you add to the syrup a pint of vinegar for every pound of the sugar you have put in, 1 tablespoonful of turmeric to a gallon of pickle, mace, cloves, and cinnamon to taste. Boil this up, return the rind to it, and simmer 15 minutes. Put up in glass jars. It will be fit for use in 2 weeks. This is a very handsome and delicious pickle, although it may seem to be made upon the principle of the Frenchman's pebble soup. Green tomato soy. 2 gallons tomatoes, green and sliced without peeling. 12 good-sized onions, also sliced. 2 quarts vinegar. 1 quart sugar. 2 tablespoonfuls salt. 2 tablespoonfuls ground mustard. 2 tablespoonfuls black pepper ground. 1 tablespoonful allspice. 1 tablespoonful cloves. Mix all together and stew until tender, stirring often lest they should scorch. Put up in small glass jars. This is a most useful and pleasant sauce for almost every kind of meat and fish. Sweet tomato pickle. Very good. 7 pounds ripe tomatoes, peeled and sliced. 3½ pounds sugar. 1 ounce cinnamon and mace mixed. 1 ounce cloves. 1 quart of vinegar. Mix all together and stew an hour. Ripe tomato pickle. No. 2. 2 gallons tomatoes, peeled but not sliced. 1 pint vinegar. 2 pounds sugar. Mace, nutmeg, and cinnamon to taste. Put all on together, heat slowly to a boil, and simmer 1 hour. Put up in glass jars. Sweet pickle. Plums, pears, peaches, or other fruits. 7 pounds fruit pared. 4 pounds white sugar. 1 pint strong vinegar. Mace, cinnamon, and cloves. Pare peaches and pears. Prick plums and damsons. Tomatoes. Globes or husk tomatoes, otherwise known as ground plums. Put into the kettle with alternate layers of sugar. Heat slowly to a boil, add the vinegar and spice, boil 5 minutes. Take out the fruit with a perforated skimmer and spread upon dishes to cool. Boil the syrup thick, Pack the fruit in glass jars and pour the syrup on boiling hot. Examine every few days for the first month, and should it show signs of fermenting, set the jars uncovered in a kettle of water and heat until the contents are scalding. Husk tomatoes. A fruit which looks like a hybrid between the tomato and plum, and are particularly nice put up in this way. Pickled peaches. 10 pounds fruit, pared. 4½ pounds sugar. 1 quart vinegar. Mace, cinnamon, and cloves to taste. Lay the peaches in the sugar for an hour. Drain off every drop of syrup and put over the fire with about a cup of water. Boil until the scum ceases to rise. Skim, put in the fruit, and boil 5 minutes. Take out the peaches with a perforated skimmer and spread upon dishes to cool. Add the vinegar and spices to the syrup. Boil 15 minutes longer and pour over the fruit in glass jars. Pickled peaches, unpeeled. Rub the fur off with a coarse cloth and prick each peach with a fork. Heat in just enough water to cover them until they almost boil. Take them out and add to the water sugar in the following proportions. For every 7 pounds of fruit, 3 pounds of sugar. Boil 15 minutes, skim, and add 3 pints of vinegar, 1 tablespoonful each of allspice, mace, and cinnamon, 1 teaspoonful celery seed, 1 teaspoonful cloves. Put the spices in thin muslin bags. Boil all together 10 minutes. Then put in the fruit and boil until they can be pierced with a straw. Take out the fruit with a skimmer and spread upon dishes to cool. Boil the syrup until thick, pack the peaches in glass jars, and pour this over them scalding hot. You may pickle pears in the same way without peeling. Pickled cherries. Morella, or large red tart cherries, as fresh as you can get them. To every quart allow a large cup of vinegar and 2 tablespoonfuls of sugar, with a dozen whole cloves and half a dozen blades of mace. Put the vinegar and sugar on to heat with the spices. Boil 5 minutes. Turn out into a covered stoneware vessel. Cover and let it get perfectly cold. Strain out the spices. Fill small jars 3/4 of the way to the top with fruit, and pour the cold vinegar over them. Cork or cover tightly. Leave the stems on the cherries. Picklet. 4 large crisp cabbages chopped fine. 1 quart onions chopped fine. 2 quarts of vinegar, or enough to cover the cabbage. 2 pounds brown sugar. 2 tablespoonfuls ground mustard. 2 tablespoonfuls black pepper. 2 tablespoonfuls cinnamon. 2 tablespoonfuls turmeric. 2 tablespoonfuls celery seed. 1 tablespoonful allspice. 1 tablespoonful mace. 1 tablespoonful alum, pulverized. Pack the cabbage and onions in alternate layers, with a little salt between them. Let them stand until next day. Then scald the vinegar, sugar, and spices together, and pour over the cabbage and onion. Do this 3 mornings in succession. On the 4th, put all together over the fire and heat to a boil. Let them boil 5 minutes. When cold, pack in small jars. It is fit for use as soon as cold, but keeps well. End of section 51.
Section 52 of Common Sense in the Household. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Piotr Natter. Common Sense in the Household, a Manual of Practical Housewifery by Marion Harland. Drinks. Coffee. Never buy the ground coffee put up in packages, if you can get any other. The mere fact that after they have gone to the expense of the machinery and labour requisite for grinding it, the manufacturers can sell it cheaper per pound than grocers can the whole grains, roasted or raw, should convince any sensible person that it is adulterated with other and less expensive substances. Be that as it may, coffee loses its aroma so rapidly after it is ground that it is worth your while to buy it whole, either in small quantities freshly roasted or raw, and roasted yourself, or stand by and see your respectable grocer grind what you have just bought. You can roast in a pan in the oven, stirring every few minutes, or in the same upon the top of the range. Stir often and roast quickly to a bright brown, not a dull black. While still hot, beat up the white of an egg with a tablespoonful of melted butter and stir up well with it. This will tend to preserve the flavor. Grind just enough at a time for a single making. To make coffee, boiled. 1 full coffee cup, 1/2 pint of ground coffee. 1 quart of boiling water. White of an egg and crushed shell of same. 1/2 cup of cold water to settle it. Stir up the eggshell and the white beaten with the coffee, and a very little cold water, and mix gradually with the boiling water in the coffee boiler. Stir from the sides and top as it boils up. Boil pretty fast 12 minutes. Pour in the cold water and take from the fire, setting gently upon the hearth to settle. In 5 minutes pour it off carefully into your silver, china, or Britannia coffee pot, which should be previously well scalded. Send to table hot. To make coffee without boiling. There are so many patent coffee pots for this purpose, and the directions sold with these are so minute, that I need give only a few general rules here. Allow rather more coffee to a given quantity of water than if it were to be boiled, and have it ground very fine. Put the coffee in the uppermost compartment, pour on the water very slowly until the fine coffee is saturated, then more rapidly. The water should be boiling. Shut down the top, and the coffee ought to be ready when it has gone through the double or treble set of strainers. Should it not be strong enough, run it through again. Café au lait. 1 pint very strong made coffee, fresh and hot. 1 pint boiling milk. The coffee should be poured off the grounds through a fine strainer (thin muslin is the best material) into the table coffee pot. Add the milk, and set the pot where it will keep hot for 5 minutes before pouring it out. Tea. 2 teaspoonfuls of tea to 1 large cupful of boiling water. Scald the teapot well, put in the tea, and, covering close, set it on the stove or range 1 minute to warm. Pour on enough boiling water to cover it well, and let it stand 10 minutes to draw. Keep the lid of the pot shut, and set in a warm place, but do not let it boil. Fill up with as much boiling water as you will need, and send hot to the table, after pouring into a heated china or silver pot. The bane of tea in many households is unboiled water. It can never extract the flavor as it should, although it steep for hours. The kettle should not only steam, but bubble and puff in a hard boil before you add water from it to the tea leaves. Boiling after the tea is made injures the flavor either by deadening or making it rank and herby. The English custom of making tea upon the breakfast or tea table is fast gaining ground in America. It is at once the best and prettiest way of preparing the beverage. Chocolate. 6 tablespoonfuls grated chocolate to each pint of water. As much milk as you have water. Sweeten to taste. Put on the water boiling hot. Rub the chocolate smooth in a little cold water, and stir into the boiling water. Boil 20 minutes. Add the milk, and boil 10 minutes more, stirring frequently. You can sweeten upon the fire or in the cups. Cocoa nibs or shells. 1 quart of boiling water. 2 ounces of cocoa nibs. 1 quart fresh milk. Wet the shells or nibs up with a little cold water. Add to the boiling, and cook 1 hour and a half. Strain, put in the milk, let it heat almost to boiling, and take from the fire. This is excellent for invalids. Prepared cocoa. 1 quart of water, boiling. 2 ounces prepared cocoa, baker's is best. 1 quart of milk. Make as you do chocolate, only boil nearly an hour before you add the milk, afterward heating almost to boiling. Sweeten to taste. Milk tea for children. 1 pint fresh milk, and the same of boiling water. Sweeten to taste. Raspberry Royal. 4 quarts ripe berries. 1 quart best cider vinegar. 1 pound white sugar. 1 pint fine brandy. Put the berries in a stone jar, pour the vinegar over them, add the sugar, and pound the berries to a paste with a wooden pestle, or mash with a spoon. Let them stand in the sun 4 hours. Strain and squeeze out all the juice, and put in the brandy. Seal up in bottles, lay them on their sides in the cellar, and cover with sawdust. Stir 2 tablespoonfuls into a tumbler of ice water when you wish to use it. Raspberry vinegar. Put the raspberries into a stone vessel and mash them to pulp. Add cider vinegar, no specious imitation, but the genuine article, enough to cover it well. Stand in the sun 12 hours, and all night in the cellar. Stir up well occasionally during this time. Strain and put as many fresh berries in the jar as you took out. Pour the strained vinegar over them. Mash and set in the sun all day. Strain a second time next day. To each quart of this juice allow 1 pint of water, 4 pounds of sugar, best white, for every 3 pints of this liquid, juice and water mingled. Place over a gentle fire and stir until the sugar is dissolved. Heat slowly to boiling, skimming off the scum, and as soon as it fairly boils take off and strain. Bottle while warm, and seal the corks with sealing wax, or beeswax and rosin. A most refreshing and pleasant drink. Blackberry vinegar is made in the same manner as raspberry, allowing 5½ pounds of sugar to 3 pints of juice and water. Blackberry cordial. 1 quart of blackberry juice, 1 pound white sugar, half an ounce of grated nutmeg, half an ounce of powdered cinnamon, 1/4 of an ounce allspice, 1/4 of an ounce cloves, 1 pint best brandy. Tie the spices in thin muslin bag. Boil juice, sugar, and spices together 15 minutes, skimming well. Add the brandy. Set aside in a closely covered vessel to cool. When perfectly cold, strain out the spices and bottle, sealing the corks. Elderberry wine. 8 quarts of berries, 4 quarts of boiling water poured over the berries. Let it stand 12 hours, stirring now and then. Strain well, pressing out all the juice. Add 3 pounds of sugar to 4 quarts of juice, 1 ounce powdered cinnamon, half an ounce powdered cloves. Boil 5 minutes and set away to ferment in a stone jar, with a cloth thrown lightly over it. When it has done fermenting, rack it off carefully, not to disturb the lees. Bottle and cork down well. Cranberry wine. Mash ripe berries to a pulp, put into a stone jar. Add 1 quart of water to 2 quarts of berries. Stir well and let it stand 2 days. Strain through a double flannel bag. Mash a second supply of berries, equal in quantity to the first, and cover with this liquid. Steep 2 days more. Strain. Add 1 pound of sugar for 3 quarts of liquor, and boil 5 minutes. Let it ferment in lightly covered jars. Rack off and bottle. This is said to be very good for scrofula. Strawberry wine. 3 quarts of strawberries, mashed and strained. To the juice (there should be about a quart, if the berries are ripe and fresh) add 1/4 of water, 1 pound of sugar. Stir up well and ferment in a clean, sweet cask, leaving the bung out. When the working subsides, close tightly, or rack off into bottles. This is said by those who have tasted it to be very good. Currant wine. Pick, stem, mash, and strain the currants, which should be very ripe. To 1 quart of juice add 3/4 pound white sugar, half a pint of water. Stir all together long and well. Put into a clean cask, leaving out the bung, and covering the whole with a bit of lace or mosquito net. Let it ferment about 4 weeks. Rack off when it is quite still, and bottle. Jamaica gingerbread. 1 bottle of Jamaica ginger extract, 1 ounce of cream tartar, 6 quarts of water, 1 pound of sugar. Stir until the sugar is melted. Then put in the grated peel of a lemon, and heat until blood warm. Add the tablespoonful of brewer's yeast. Stir well and bottle. wiring down the corks. It will be fit for use in 4 days. This is a refreshing and healthful beverage mixed with pounded ice in hot weather. Raisin wine. 1 pound of white sugar, 2 pounds of raisins, seeded and chopped, 1 lemon, all the juice and half the grated peel, 2 gallons of boiling water. Put all into a stone jar and sit every day for a week. Strain then and bottle it. It will be fit for use in 10 days. Lemonade or sherbet. 3 lemons to a quart of water, 6 tablespoonfuls of sugar. Pare the yellow peel from the lemons, and, unless you mean to use the sherbet immediately, leave it out. It gives a bitter taste to the sugar if left long in it. Slice and squeeze the lemons upon the sugar, add a very little water, and let them stand 15 minutes. Then fill up with water, ice well, stir, and pour out. Orangeade is made in the same manner, substituting oranges for lemons. Strawberry sherbet, delicious. 1 quart of strawberries, 3 pints of water, 1 lemon, the juice only, 1 tablespoonful orange flower water, 3/4 pound white sugar. The strawberries should be fresh and ripe. Crush to a smooth paste, add the rest of the ingredients, except the sugar, and let it stand 3 hours. Strain over the sugar, squeezing the cloth hard. Stir until the sugar is dissolved. Strain again, and set in ice for 2 hours or more before you use it. Regent's Punch, fine. 1 pound of loaf sugar or rock candy, 1 large cup of strong black tea, made, 3 wine glasses of brandy, 3 wine glasses of rum, 1 bottle of champagne, 2 oranges, juice only, 3 lemons, juice only, 1 large lump of ice. This receipt was given me by a gentleman of the old school, a connoisseur in the matter of beverages as of cookery. "Tell your readers," he writes, "that better punch was never brewed. I give receipt and message together." Roman Punch. 3 coffee cups of lemonade, strong and sweet, 1 glass of champagne, 1 glass of rum, 2 oranges, juice only, 3 eggs, whites only, well whipped, 1/2 pound of powdered sugar, beaten into the stiffened whites. You must ice abundantly, or, if you prefer, freeze. Sherry Cobbler. Several slices of pineapple, cut in quarters, a lemon sliced thin, an orange sliced thin, 1/2 cup of powdered sugar, 1 tumbler of sherry wine, ice water, pounded ice. Take a wide-mouthed quart pitcher and lay the sliced fruit in order at the bottom, sprinkling sugar and pounded ice between the layers. Cover with sugar and ice, and let all stand together 5 minutes. Add then 2 tumblers of water and all the sugar, and stir well to dissolve this. Fill the pitcher nearly full of pounded ice, pour in the wine, and stir up from the bottom until the ingredients are thoroughly mixed. In pouring it out, put a slice of each kind of fruit in each goblet before adding the liquid. It is best sucked through a straw or glass tube. Nectar. Make as above, substituting a little rose water for the pineapple, and squeezing out the juice of the orange and lemon, instead of putting in the slices. Sprinkle nutmeg on the top. This forms a delicious and refreshing drink for invalids. Claret Punch. 1 bottle of claret, 1/4 the quantity of ice water, 2 lemons sliced, 1/2 cup of powdered sugar. Cover the sliced lemon with sugar and let it stand 10 minutes. Add the water. Stir hard for a whole minute, and pour in the wine. Put pounded ice in each glass before filling with the mixture. Eggnog. 6 eggs, whites and yolks beaten separately and very stiff. 1 quart of rich milk, 1/2 cup of sugar, 1/2 pint best brandy, flavor with nutmeg. Stir the yolks into the milk with the sugar, which should first be beaten with the yolks. Next comes the brandy. Lastly whip in the whites of 3 eggs. Cherry Bounce. 4 pounds of sour and the same quantity of sweet cherries, 2½ pounds of white sugar, 1 gallon of best whisky. Crush the cherries to pieces by pounding in a deep wooden vessel with a smooth billet of wood. Beat hard enough to crack all the stones. Put into a deep stone jar, mix in the sugar well, and cover with the whisky. Shake around briskly and turn into a demijohn. Cork tightly and let it stand a month, shaking it every day, and another month without touching it. Then strain off and bottle. It is better a year than 6 months old. If the Maltese cross appears but seldom in the section devoted to drinks, it is because most of my information respecting their manufacture is second hand. In my own family they are so little used except in sickness that I should not dare to teach others, upon my own authority, how to prepare them. Indeed, the temptation I felt to omit many of them reminded me of a remark made, introductory of preserves, by one of the complete housewives, who, all 5 together, drove me to the verge of an attack of congestion of the brain before I had been a housekeeper for a week. Said this judicious lady, "Preserves of all kinds are expensive and indigestible, and therefore poisonous. Therefore, again, I shall not give directions for their manufacture, except to remark that barberries stewed in molasses are economical, and a degree less hurtful than most others of that class of compounds." Then I reflected that I might, upon the same principle, exclude all receipts in which cocoanut is used, because it is rank poison to me, while a dear friend of mine would as soon touch arsenic as an egg. A large majority of the beverages I have named are highly medicinal, and deserve a place in the housekeeper's calendar on that account. Many, so far from being hurtful, are beneficial to a weak stomach, or a system sufficiently under general debility. None which contain alcohol in any shape should be used daily, much less semi or tri-daily by a well person. This principle reduced to practice would prove the preventive ounce which would cure, all over the land, the need for temperance societies and inebriate asylums. End of section 52.
Section 53 of Common Sense in the Household. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Marianne. Common Sense in the Household, a Manual of Practical Housewifery by Marion Harland. Section 53. The Sick Room. The sick chamber should be the most quiet and cheerful in the house, a sacred isle past which the waves of domestic toil and solicitude glide silently. This is not an easy rule to obey. Whoever the invalid may be, whether the mother, father, or the sweet youngling of the flock, the foundations of the household seem thrown out of course while the sickness lasts. You may have good servants and kind friends to aid you, but the hitch in the machinery is not to be smoothed out by their efforts. The irregularity does not annoy you. You do not notice it if the attack be severe or dangerous. All other things are swallowed up in the all-absorbing, ever-present alarm. You count nothing an inconvenience that can bring present relief, or possible healing to the beloved one. Disdain for yourself, rest, or ease, while the shadow hangs about the pillow crushed by the helpless head. But when it passes, when the first transport of thankfulness have subsided into an abiding sense of safety, the mind swings back to the accustomed pivot, and your eyes seem to be suddenly unbound. You find with dismay that the children have run wild, and the comfort of the whole family been neglected during your confinement to the post of most urgent duty; with displeasure that the servants have, as you consider, taken advantage of your situation to omit this task, and to slur over that; in fine, that nothing has been done well, and so many things left altogether undone, that you are worried out of your senses, a phrase that too often signifies out of your temper. And it is at just this juncture, when you are called to 50 points of attention and labor at once, and are on the verge of despair at the conglomeration worse than conglomerated arising before you, fidgeting to pick up dropped stitches in the web you were wont to keep so even, that the invalid becomes most exacting. Unreasonable, you name it to yourself, even though it be like John himself, who calls upon you every 3rd minute for some little office of loving kindness, who wants to be amused and fed and petted, and made generally comfortable as if he were a 6 months old baby, who never remembers that you must be wearied out with watching and anxiety, and that everything below stairs is going to destruction for the want of a balance wheel. The better he loves you, the more apt he is to fancy that nobody but you can do anything for him, the more certain to crave something which no one else knows how to prepare. And when you have strained muscle and patience a little further to get it ready, and with prudent foresight made enough to last for several meals, it is more than probable that his fickle taste will suggest something entirely different for the next time. Just for a change, you know, dear. One gets so tired of eating the same thing so often. He might be a little more considerate, less childish, you think, turning away that he may not see your change of countenance. When you have taken so much pains to suit him exactly, it is harder yet when he refuses to do more than taste the delicacy you hoped would tempt him. It is very nice, I suppose, my love, says the poor fellow, with the air of a martyr. But it does not taste right, somehow. Maybe the children can dispose of it. If I had a lemon ice, or some wine jelly such as my mother used to make, I am sure I could relish it. I always did detest sick people's diet. If he is very much shaken as to nerves, he will be likely to say messes. I am fairly wild, said a loving wife and mother and thrifty housekeeper to me one day when I called to see her. She had just nursed her husband and 3 children through the influenza. All had been down with it at once. That form of demoniacal possession is generally conducted upon the wholesale principle. One of her servants had left in disgust at the increased pressure of work. The weather was rainy, blowy, raw. The streets were muddy, and there was no such thing as keeping steps and halls clean, while the 4 invalids were cross as only toothache or influenza can make human beings. I am fairly wild, said the worthy creature, with tears in her eyes. I cannot snatch a minute from morning until night to put things straight, and yet I am almost tired to death. I was saying to myself as you came in that I wouldn't try any longer. I would just sit still until the dirt was piled up to my chin, and then I would get up on the table. How often I have thought of her odd speech since, sometimes with a smile, more frequently with a sigh. But with all my pity for the nurse and housekeeper, I cannot conceal from myself that I would not forget, or let you forget for a moment, the truth that the sick one is the greater sufferer. It is never pleasant to be laid upon the shelf. The resting place, falsely so called, is hard and narrow and uneven enough. And when the tramp of the outer world does not jar the sore jaded frame, when there is no apparent need for the sick person to be upon his feet, and for aught that others can see, or he can say, he might as well stay where he is for a month or 2. But when, the rack of pain having been removed, the dulled perceptions of the mind reawaken to sensitiveness, and there comes to his ear the bugle call of duty, sharp, imperative, when every idle moment speaks to him of a slain opportunity, and the no longer strong man shakes his fetters with piteous cries against fate, do not despise or be impatient with him. He is feverish and inconsiderate and capricious because he is not himself. You see only the poor wreck left by the demon as he tore his way out of him at the divine command. Gather it up lovingly in your arms, and nurse it back to strength and comeliness. The sick should always be the chief object of thought and care with all in the household. If need be, let the dirt lie chin deep everywhere else, so long as it is kept out of that one room. There, be jealous in your care that nothing offends sight and smell. There should be no smell in a sick chamber. To avoid this, let in the air freely and often. Cologne water will not dispel a foul odor, while disinfectants are noisome in themselves. Bathe the patient as frequently and thoroughly as prudence will allow, and change his clothing, with the bed linen, every day. Do not keep the medicines where he can see them, nor let him ever witness the mixing of that which he is to swallow. So soon as his meals are over, remove every vestige of them from the room. Even a soiled spoon, lying on a table or bureau, may offend his fastidious appetite. Cover the stand or waiter from which he eats with a spotless napkin, and serve his food in your daintiest ware. My heart softens almost to cheerfulness when I recall the hours, days, weeks I have myself spent in the chamber of languishing, and the ingenuity of tenderness that, from my babyhood, had striven to cheat the imprisonment of weariness, and made me forget pain and uselessness. The pretty surprises daily invented for my entertainment, the exceeding nicety with which they were set out before me, the loving words that nourished my spirit when the body was faint unto death. These are events, not slight incidents, in the book of memory. When I cease to be grateful for them, or to learn from them how to minister unto others of the like consolation, may my heart forget to beat, my right hand lose her cunning. Do not ask your charge what he would like to eat today. He will, of a surety, sicken with the effort at selection, and say, "Nothing." But watch attentively for the slightest intimation of a desire for any particular delicacy, and if you are assured that it cannot hurt him, procure it, if you can, without letting him guess at your intention. Feed him lightly and often, never bringing more into his sight than he may safely eat. A big bowl of broth or jelly will either tempt him to imprudence or discourage him. Am I to be burdened with all that? Cries the affrighted stomach, and will have none of it. When he is very weak, feed him with your own hand, playfully, as you would a child, talking cheerily of something besides his food, and coaxing him into taking the needed nutriment as only a wife and mother can, or as nobody but John could beguile you to effort in the same direction. Study all pleasant and soothing arts to while away the time, and keep worry of every kind away from him. A trifle at which you can laugh will be a burden to the enfeebled mind and body, and he has nothing to do but lie still and roll it over until it swells into a mountain. When he can be removed without danger, let him have his meals in another room, changing the air of each when he is not in it. Everyone who has suffered from long sickness knows the peculiar loathing attendant upon the idea that all food is tainted with the atmosphere of the chamber in which it is served, and if eaten in bed, tastes of the mattress and pillows. The room and all in it may be clean, fresh, and sweet, but the fancy cannot be dismissed, and it is wiser to humor than to reason with most sick fancies. A hired nurse is a useful, often a necessary thing, but while you are upon your feet and mistress of your own house, delegate to no one the precious task of catering for the dear sufferer. It is an art in itself. I hope a practical knowledge of it will be taught in women's medical colleges when they are an established institution with us. I wish it were proper to record here the name of one of the kindest and best family physicians I ever knew, who had charge of my not very firm health during my girlhood. He owed much, I suppose no one ever knew really how much, of his success in his practice to his tact and skill in devising palatable and suitable nourishment for his patients. I well remember the childish pleasure with which I would hear him say, when the violence of the attack had passed, "Now, my dear child, we must begin with the kitchen physic," and the glow of amused expectation with which I used to watch him, as, with an arch show of mystery, he would beckon my mother from the room to receive his prescription, the impatience with which I awaited the result of the conference, and the zest with which I ate whatever he ordered. If I could have persuaded him to manage this department of my work, it would win for me a degree of M.D. with a new meaning, Mistress of Dietetics. The sick room. Beef tea. 1 pound lean beef cut into small pieces. Put into a jar without a drop of water, cover tightly, and set in a pot of cold water. Heat gradually to a boil, and continue this steadily for 3 or 4 hours until the meat is like white rags and the juice all drawn out. Season with salt to taste, and when cold, skim. The patient will often prefer this ice cold to hot. Serve with Albert biscuit or thin wafers, unleavened, made by a receipt given under the head of bread. Mutton broth. 1 pound lean mutton or lamb, cut small. 1 quart water, cold. 1 tablespoonful rice or barley, soaked in a very little warm water. 4 tablespoonsful milk. Salt and pepper, with a little chopped parsley. Boil the meat unsalted in the water, keeping it closely covered until it falls to pieces. Strain it out, skim, add the soaked barley or rice, simmer half an hour, stirring often. Stir in the seasonings and the milk, and simmer 5 minutes after it heats up well, taking care it does not burn. Serve hot with cream crackers. Chicken broth is excellent made in the same manner as mutton, cracking the bones well before you put in the fowl. Veal and sago broth. 2 pounds knuckle of veal, cracked all to pieces. 2 quarts of cold water. 3 tablespoonsful best pearl sago, soaked in a cup of cold water. 1 cup cream, heated to boiling. Yolks of 2 eggs, beaten light. Boil the veal and water in a covered saucepan very slowly until reduced to 1 quart of liquid. Strain, skim, season with salt, and stir into the soaked sago, having previously warmed it by setting for half an hour in a saucepan of boiling water, and stirring from time to time. Simmer half an hour, taking care it does not burn. Beat in the cream and eggs, give one good boil up, and turn out. This is excellent for consumptives. Beef and sago broth. 2 pounds of beef, cut up small, 2 quarts of water, 1 cup of sago soaked soft in a little lukewarm water, yolks of 3 eggs, salt to taste. Stew the beef until it falls to pieces. Strain it out, salt the liquid, and stir in the sago. Simmer gently 1 hour, stirring often. Add the beaten yolks, boil up once, and serve. This is a strengthening and nice soup. Eat with dry toast. Arrowroot jelly, plain. 1 cup boiling water. 2 heaping tablespoonsful of best Bermuda arrowroot. 1 teaspoonful lemon juice. 2 teaspoonsful of white sugar. Wet the arrowroot in a little cold water and rub smooth. Then stir into the hot, which should be on the fire and actually boiling at the time, with the sugar already melted in it. Stir until clear, boiling steadily all the while, and add the lemon. Wet a cup in cold water and pour in the jelly to form. Eat cold with sugar and cream flavored with rosewater. An invaluable preparation in cases where wine is forbidden. Arrowroot wine jelly. 1 cup boiling water, 2 heaping teaspoonsful arrowroot, 2 heaping white sugar, 1 tablespoonful brandy or 3 tablespoonsful of wine. An excellent corrective to weak bowels. Arrowroot Blanc-Mange. 1 cupful boiling milk. 2 dessertspoonfuls best arrowroot, rubbed smooth in cold water. 2 teaspoonsful white sugar, vanilla or other essence. Boil until it thickens well, stirring all the while. Eat cold with cream, flavored with rosewater and sweetened to taste. Sago may be substituted for arrowroot in any of the foregoing receipts, when you have soaked it an hour in water poured over it cold, and gradually warmed by setting the cup containing it in hot water. Boil rather longer than you do the arrowroot. Sago gruel. 2 cups water, 2 tablespoonsful sago, 3 teaspoonsful white sugar, 1 glass of wine, 1 tablespoonful lemon juice, nutmeg to taste, and a pinch of salt. Put the sago in the water while cold, and warm by setting in a saucepan of boiling water. Stir often and let it soften and heat for 1 hour. Then boil 10 minutes, stirring all the while. Add the sugar, wine, and lemon, and pour into a bowl or mold to cool. Eat warm if preferred. The wine and nutmeg should be omitted if the patient be feverish. Indian meal gruel. 2 quarts of boiling water, 1 cup of Indian meal, and 1 tablespoonful flour wet up with cold water. Salt to taste, and if you like, sugar and nutmeg. Wet the meal and flour to a smooth paste, and stir into the water while it is actually boiling. Boil slowly 1 hour, stirring up well from the bottom. Season with salt to taste. Some sweeten it, but I like it better with a little pepper added to the salt. If a cathartic is desired, omit the white flour altogether. Oatmeal gruel is made in the same way. Milk and rice gruel. 1 quart boiling milk, 2 tablespoonsful heaping of ground rice, wet with cold milk, 1 saltspoonful of salt. Stir in the rice paste and boil 10 minutes, stirring all the while. Season with sugar and nutmeg and eat warm with cream. You may use Indian meal instead of rice flour, which is an astringent. In this case, boil an hour. Dried flour for teething children. 1 cup of flour, tied in a stout muslin bag and dropped into cold water, then set over the fire. Boil 3 hours steadily. Turn out the flour ball and dry it in the hot sun all day, or, if you need it at once, dry it in a moderate oven without shutting the door. To use it, grate a tablespoonful for a cupful of boiling milk and water, half and half. Wet up the flour with a very little cold water, stir in and boil 5 minutes. Put in a little salt. Tapioca jelly. Very good. 1 cup of tapioca, 3 cups of cold water, juice of a lemon and pinch of the grated peel, sweeten to taste. Soak the tapioca in the water 4 hours. Set within a saucepan of boiling water. Pour more lukewarm water over the tapioca if it has absorbed too much of the liquid, and heat, stirring frequently. If too thick after it begins to clear, put in a very little boiling water. When quite clear, put in the sugar and lemon. Pour into molds. Eat cold, with cream flavored with rose water and sweetened. Tapioca Blanc-Mange. 1 cup of tapioca soaked in 2 cups cold water. 3 cups boiling milk. 3 tablespoonsful white sugar, rose water or vanilla. Soak the tapioca 4 hours, and stir, with the water in which it was soaked, into the boiling milk. Sweeten and boil slowly, stirring all the while, 15 minutes. Take off, flavor, and put into molds. Eat cold with cream. Wash tapioca well before soaking. Arrowroot custard. Nice. 2 cups of boiling milk. 3 heaping teaspoonfuls arrowroot wet up with a little cold milk. 2 tablespoonsful white sugar beaten with egg. 1 egg very well beaten. Mix the arrowroot paste with the boiling milk. Stir 3 minutes. Take from the fire and whip in the egg and sugar. Boil 2 minutes longer. Flavor with vanilla or rose water and pour into molds. Rice flour milk. 2 cups of milk, boiling. 2 tablespoonsful rice flour wet up with cold milk. Boil 10 minutes, stirring all the while, and flavor to taste. Eat warm with cream. Sago milk. 3 tablespoonsful sago, soaked in a large cup cold water 1 hour. 3 cups boiling milk, sweeten and flavor to taste. Simmer slowly half an hour. Eat warm. Tapioca milk is made in the same way. Boiled rice. 1/2 cup whole rice, boiled in just enough water to cover it. 1 cup of milk, a little salt, 1 egg beaten light. When the rice is nearly done, turn off the water, add the milk and simmer, taking care it does not scorch, until the milk boils up well. Salt and beat in the egg. Eat warm with cream, sugar, and nutmeg. Panada. 6 Boston crackers split, 2 tablespoonsful white sugar, a good pinch of salt, and a little nutmeg, enough boiling water to cover them well. Split the crackers and place in a bowl in layers, salt and sugar scattered among them. Cover with boiling water and set on the hearth with a closed top over the bowl for at least 1 hour. The crackers should be almost clear and soft as jelly, but not broken. Eat from the bowl, with more sugar sprinkled in if you wish. If properly made, this panada is very nice. Bread panada or jelly. Pare some slices of stale baker's bread and toast nicely without burning. Pile in a bowl, sprinkling sugar and a very little salt between. Cover well with boiling water and set, with a tight lid upon the top, in a pan of boiling water. Simmer gently until the contents of the bowl are like jelly. Eat warm with powdered sugar and nutmeg. Chicken jelly. Very nourishing. Half a raw chicken, pounded with a mallet, bones and meat together. Plenty of cold water to cover it well, about a quart. Heat slowly in a covered vessel, and let it simmer until the meat is in white rags and the liquid reduced 1/2. Strain and press, first through a colander, then through a coarse cloth. Salt to taste and pepper if you think best. Return to fire and simmer 5 minutes longer. Skim when cool. Give to the patient cold, just from the ice, with unleavened wafers. Keep on the ice. You can make into sandwiches by putting the jelly between thin slices of bread spread lightly with butter. Calves' feet broth. 2 calves' feet, 2 quarts cold water, 1 egg beaten up with 2 tablespoonsful milk for each cup of broth, pepper and salt. Boil the feet to shreds. Strain the liquor through a double muslin bag, season to taste, and set by for use as you need it. Warm by the small quantity, allowing to each cupful a beaten egg and 2 tablespoonsful of milk. Give a good boil up to cook these, and serve with thin crisp toast. If the patient can take it, a dash of lemon juice improves the broth. Toast water. Slices of toast nicely browned without a symptom of burning. Enough boiling water to cover them. Cover closely and let them steep until cold. Strain the water, sweeten to taste, and put a piece of ice in each glassful. If the physician thinks it safe, add a little lemon juice. Apple water. 1 large juicy pippin, the most finely flavored you can get. 3 cups of cold water, 1 quart if the apple is very large. Pare and quarter the apple, but do not core it. Put it on the fire in a tin or porcelain saucepan with the water, and boil, closely covered, until the apple stews to pieces. Strain the liquor at once, pressing the apple hard in the cloth. Strain this again through a finer bag, and set away to cool. Sweeten with white sugar and ice for drinking. It is a very refreshing and palatable drink. Jelly water. 1 large tablespoonful currant or cranberry jelly. 1 goblet ice water. Beat up well for a fever patient. Wild cherry or blackberry jelly is excellent, prepared in like manner for those suffering with summer complaint. Flaxseed lemonade. 4 tablespoonsful flaxseed, whole. 1 quart boiling water poured upon the flaxseed. Juice of 2 lemons, leaving out the peel. Sweeten to taste. Steep 3 hours in a covered pitcher. If too thick, put in cold water with the lemon juice and sugar. Ice for drinking. It is admirable for colds. Slippery elm bark tea. Break the bark into bits, pouring boiling water over it. Cover and let it infuse until cold. Sweeten, ice, and take for summer disorders, or add lemon juice and drink for a bad cold. Apple toddy. Boil a large juicy pippin in a quart of water, and when it has broken to pieces, strain off the water. While it is still boiling hot, add a glass of fine old whiskey, a little lemon juice, and sweeten to taste. Take hot at bedtime for influenza. Milk punch. 1 tumbler of milk well sweetened. 2 tablespoonsful best brandy, well stirred in. I have known very sick patients to be kept alive for days at a time with this mixture and nothing else, until nature could rally her forces. Give very cold with ice. Egg and milk punch is made by the preceding receipt, with an egg beaten very light with the sugar, and stirred before the brandy is added. Iceland or Irish moss lemonade. A handful of Irish or Iceland moss, washed in 5 waters. 2 quarts boiling water, poured upon the moss and left until cold. 2 lemons, peeled and sliced, leaving out the peel. Sweeten very well, and ice. Do not strain, and if it thicken too much, add cold water. Excellent for feverish colds and all pulmonary troubles. Iceland or Irish moss jelly. A handful of moss, washed in 5 waters, and soaked an hour. 1 quart boiling water. 2 lemons, the juice only. 1 glass of wine. 1/4 teaspoonful cinnamon. Measure scantily. Soak the washed moss in a very little cold water. Stir into the boiling, and simmer until it is dissolved. Sweeten, flavor, and strain into molds. You may use 2 glasses of cider instead of 1 of wine for a fever patient, putting in a little less water. Good for colds and very nourishing. Sea moss Blanc-Mange is made the same way, using boiling milk instead of water, and leaving out the lemons and wine. Flavor with vanilla or rosewater. Dry toast. Pare off the crust from stale light bread. Slice ½ an inch thick and toast quickly. Graham bread is very nice toasted. Butter lightly if the patient can eat butter. Milk toast. Toast as just directed. Dip each slice, as it comes from the toaster, in boiling water. Butter, salt slightly, and lay in a deep covered dish. Have ready in a saucepan enough boiling milk to cover all well. When your slices are packed, salt this very slightly, melt in it a bit of butter, and pour over them. Closely cover and let it stand 5 minutes before using it. It is excellent when made with graham bread. This is a good dish for a family tea as well as for invalids. Unleavened biscuit or wafers. Mix good dry flour in a stiff dough with milk. Salt and roll out thin. Cut into round cakes and roll these again almost as thin as letter paper. Bake very quickly. They may also be mixed with water. These are very simple and palatable, and go well with all kinds of broth, especially oyster soup. Dried rusk. See bread. Beefsteak and mutton chops. Choose the tenderest cuts and broil over a clear hot fire with your wisest skill. Let the steak be rare, the chops well done. Salt and pepper. Layer between 2 hot plates 3 minutes, and serve to your patient. If he is very weak, do not let him swallow anything except the juice when he has chewed the meat well. The essence of rare beef, roast or broiled, thus expressed, is considered by some physicians to be more strengthening than beef tea, prepared in the usual manner. Sangaree or porteree. 1/3 wine or porter mixed with 2/3 cold water. Sweeten, grate nutmeg on the top, and ice. Serve dry toast with it. Taken hot, it is good for a sudden cold. Wine whey. 1 pint boiling milk. 1 large glass pale wine poured in when the milk is scalding hot. Boil up once, remove from the fire, and let it cool. Do not stir it after the wine is put in. When the curd forms, draw off the whey and sweeten. Herb teas are made by infusing the dried or green leaves and stalks in boiling water and letting them stand until cold. Sweeten to taste. Sage tea, sweetened with honey, is good for a sore throat, used as a gargle, with a small bit of alum dissolved in it. Catnip tea is the best panacea for infant ills, in the way of cold and colic, known to nurses. Pennyroyal tea will often avert the unpleasant consequences of a sudden check of perspiration, or the evils induced by ladies' thin shoes. Chamomile and gentian teas are excellent tonics taken either cold or hot. The tea made from blackberry root is said to be good for summer disorders. That from green strawberry leaves is an admirable and soothing wash for a cankered mouth. Tea of parsley root scraped and steeped in boiling water, taken warm, will often cure strangury and kindred affections, as will that made from dried pumpkin seed. Tansy and rue teas are useful in cases of colic, as are fennel seeds steeped in brandy. A tea of damask rose leaves, dry or fresh, will usually subdue any simple case of summer complaint in infants. Mint tea, made from the green leaves, crushed in cold or hot water and sweetened, is palatable and healing to the stomach and bowels. Mint julep. Some sprigs of green mint, slightly bruised, in a tumbler with a teaspoon. Put in a generous teaspoonful of white sugar. Add gradually, stirring and rubbing lightly, enough water to fill the glass 3/4 of the way to the top. Fill up with pounded ice, stir hard, and pour into a larger glass that you may shake up well, and put in 2 tablespoonfuls of fine brandy. This is called a hailstorm julep. Au sucre. Dissolve 3 or 4 lumps of loaf sugar in a glass of ice water, and take a teaspoonful every few minutes for a tickling in the throat or a hacking cough. Keep it ice cold. A simple but often an efficacious remedy. End of section 53.
Section 54 of Common Sense in the Household. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Nalini Chandran, India. Common Sense in the Household, a manual of practical housewifery by Marion Harland. The Nursery. All food intended for infants should be very thoroughly cooked. The numerous varieties of farinaceous substances, biscottine, farina, rice flour, arrowroot, etc., however nourishing may be their properties when rightly prepared, are harsh and drastic when underdone. Unless you have a nurse whom you know for yourself to be faithful and experienced, always superintend the cooking of baby's food. It can do no harm, it may prevent much if you examine it every day to see that it is right as to quality and quantity. Do not aim at variety in this branch of your profession. Confine a child under 3 years of age to a very limited bill of fare. His stomach is too delicate an organ to be tampered with. Let milk, scalded or boiled as a rule, be the staple, mixed with farina, barley or something of the sort. Let him munch graham bread and light crackers freely. Remove far from him hot bread and griddled cakes. When he has cut his carnivorous teeth, nature says, "This creature wants meat." And nature's supply is seldom in advance of the demand. If he did not need what the teeth are designed to chew, you may be sure they would not be given him. Grant him the novel food sparingly and with discretion as to kind. Rare beef and well-boiled mutton, tender roast or boiled chicken and turkey are safe. Withhold fried meats of every description. Do not let him touch veal or pork in any shape. Mince the meat very finely to save his digestive apparatus all unnecessary work. Mealy old potatoes, never new or waxy, young onions boiled in 2 waters, fresh asparagus, green peas, and dry sweet potatoes should suffice for vegetables, with of course rice and hominy. For dessert, once in a while, a simple custard, a taste of homemade ice cream, rice and farina puddings, Graham hasty pudding, the inner part of a well-roasted apple, and in their season ripe peaches and apples will not harm him, taken in moderation, if he be well and strong. Pare the fruit always. The skin of an apple is as bad for him as a bit of your kid gloves would be. That of a grape more indigestible than sole leather. Raisins, skins and all, are unfit for anybody to eat. Pulp and pits, they are poisonous for baby. Ditto pickles, pastry and preserves. Ditto most kinds of cake and all sorts of fruit puddings. Give him light suppers and put him to bed early in a dark room. He will not grow better in a glare of artificial light than will your camellias and azaleas. Always see for yourself that his last waking thoughts are pleasant, that he shuts his eyes at peace with the world and in love with you, that his feet are warm, his stomach easy, and his body not overloaded with blankets and quilts. Also that the nursery is clean and freshly aired. These are better prescriptions for sound slumber than all the old wives' fables of the excellent properties of that pernicious drug, soothing syrup. Farina. 1 cup boiling water, 1 cup fresh milk, 1 large tablespoonful Hecker's farina wet up with cold water, 2 teaspoonfuls white sugar, a pinch of salt. Stir the farina into the boiling water, slightly salted, in the farina kettle, that is, one boiler set within another, the latter filled with hot water. Boil 15 minutes, stirring constantly until it is well thickened. Then add the milk, stirring it in gradually, and boil 15 minutes longer. Sweeten and give to the child so soon as it is cool enough. You may make enough in the morning to last all day, warming it up with a little hot milk as you want it. Keep in a cold place. Some of the finest children I have ever seen were reared upon this diet. Do not get it too sweet and cook it well. Be sure the farina is sweet and dry. Barley. It sometimes happens that milk disagrees with the delicate infant so seriously that it is necessary to substitute some other article of diet for a few days. I have known barley water to be used in such cases, with great success. 2 cups boiling water, 2 tablespoonfuls pearl barley, picked over and washed, a pinch of salt, 2 teaspoonfuls white sugar, not heaping. Soak the barley half an hour in a very little lukewarm water and stir without draining into the boiling water, salted very slightly. Simmer 1 hour, stirring often and strain before sweetening. Arrowroot. 1 cup of boiling water, 1 cup fresh milk, 2 teaspoonfuls best Bermuda arrowroot wet with cold water, 1 small pinch of salt, 2 even teaspoonfuls white sugar dissolved in the milk. Stir the arrowroot paste into the salted boiling water. Stir and boil 5 minutes or until it is clear. Add the sweetened milk and boil 10 minutes slowly, still stirring. If the child has fever or cannot digest milk, substitute hot water for it. It is, however, a dangerous experiment to forbid milk altogether for an infant. I should rather diminish the quantity, putting in, say, 1/3 or 1/4 as much as the recipe names and filling up with boiling water. Rice jelly. 1/2 cup whole rice, well washed and soaked 2 hours in a little warm water. Then added with the water to that in the kettle. 3 pints cold water. 1 small pinch of salt put into the water. Sweeten to taste with loaf sugar. Simmer the rice half an hour, then boil it until it is a smooth paste and the water is reduced 1/2. Strain through double tarlatan, sweeten and give to the child. This is an admirable preparation for an infant suffering with weakness of the bowels. If there is no fever, you may put 1/3 part milk boiled with the rice. Give a few spoonfuls every hour or half hour. Milk and bread. 1 cup boiled milk, 2 tablespoonfuls stale graham bread, a very little sugar. Crumble the bread into the boiled milk, sweeten, and when cool enough, feed to the child with a spoon. Wheaten grits. 4 tablespoonfuls grits, cracked wheat, soaked in a little cold water 1 hour and then put into the kettle. 1 quart boiling water, 1 cup milk, a pinch of salt. Boil the soaked grits in the quart of water 1 hour, stirring up often. Add the milk and boil half an hour longer. Sweeten to taste, and if the child is well, pour cream over it. This is designed for children over a year old. It is slightly cathartic, especially if the milk be omitted, and is most useful in regulating the bowels. When this can be done without drugs, it is far better. Hominy and milk. 1/2 cup small hominy, 1 scant quart of cold water, pinch of salt. Boil 1 hour, stirring often. While hot, mix some soft with new milk, sweeten to taste, and feed to baby with a spoon. This is also relaxing to the bowels and should not be given if the child is disposed to summer complaint. Graham Hasty Pudding. 1 cup Graham flour wet up with cold water. 1 large cup boiling water and same quantity of milk. 1 saltspoonful of salt. Stir the wet flour into the boiling water slightly salted. Boil 15 minutes, stirring almost constantly. Add the milk and cook after it has come again to a boil 10 minutes longer. Give with sugar and milk for breakfast. Eaten with cream, nutmeg and powdered sugar, this is a good plain dessert for grown people as well as children. Rice flour hasty pudding is made as above, substituting 2 heaping tablespoonfuls rice flour for the Graham. Milk porridge. 1 tablespoonful Indian meal wet to a paste with cold water. 1 tablespoonful white flour wet to a paste with cold water. 2 cups boiling water. 2 cups milk. A good pinch of salt. Boil the paste in the hot water 20 minutes. Add the milk and cook 10 minutes, stirring often. Eat with sugar and milk stirred in while hot. Mush and milk. 1 cup Indian meal wet up with cold water. 2 quarts cold water. Salt to taste. Boil 2 hours, stirring often with a wooden spoon or a stick. To be eaten hot with milk and sugar. Condensed milk. This is perhaps the safest substitute for the good milk from one cow, which few mothers in town can procure. Keep the can in a cool place and mix according to directions. End of section 54. Recording by Nalini Chandran, India.
Section 55 of Common Sense in the Household. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Betty B. Common Sense in the Household, a Manual of Practical Housewifery by Marion Harland. Sundries. Cleaning pots, kettles, and tins. Boil a double handful of hay or grass in a new iron pot before attempting to cook with it. Scrub out with soap and sand, then set on full of fair water, and let it boil half an hour. After this you may use it without fear. As soon as you empty a pot or frying pan of that which has been cooked in it, fill with hot or cold water (hot is best), and set back upon the fire to scald thoroughly. New tins should stand near the fire with boiling water in them, in which has been dissolved a spoonful of soda, for an hour. Then be scoured inside with soft soap, afterward rinsed with hot water. Keep them clean by rubbing with sifted wood ashes or whitening. Copper utensils should be cleaned with brick dust and flannel. Never set a vessel in the pot closet without cleaning and wiping it thoroughly. If grease be left in it, it will grow rancid. If set aside wet, it is apt to rust. Knives. Clean with a soft flannel and Bath brick. If rusty, use wood ashes, rubbed on with a newly cut bit of Irish potato. This will remove spots when nothing else will. Keep your best set wrapped in soft white paper, then in linen, in a drawer out of damp and dust. Never dip the ivory handles of knives in hot water. Silver. Wash, after each meal, all that is soiled, in very hot soft water, with hard soap. Wipe hard and quickly on a clean towel, then polish with dry flannel. If discolored with egg, mustard, spinach, or beans, by any other means, rub out the stain with a stiff toothbrush, used only for this purpose, and silver soap. For years I have used no other preparation for cleaning silver than the indexical silver soap, applied as I have described. After rubbing with a stiff lather made with this, wash off with hot water, wipe and polish while hot. There is no need for the weekly silver cleaning to be an event or a bugbear, if a little care and watchfulness be observed after each meal. Silver should never be allowed to grow dingy. If Bridget or Chloe will not attend properly to this matter, take it in hand yourself. Have your own soap cups, 2 of them, one with common soap, the other with a cake of silver soap in the bottom. Have for one a mop, for the other a stiff brush. A toothbrush is best. Use your softest towels for silver. Besides being clean and easy of application, The silver soap will not wear away the metal as will whiting or chalk, or plate powder, however finely pulverized. China and glass. There are few of the minor crooks in the lot of the careful housewife that cause her more anxiety and more discouragement than the attempt to teach domestics how to wash up dishes. I've heard that Mrs. is very exact about some things, such as washing up dishes and the likes of that, said a woman to me, with an affected laugh, having called to apply for the then vacant position of cook in my kitchen. She had high recommendations, a whine engrafted upon her native brogue, and spoke of me in the third person, a trick of cheap and bogus gentility that tries my nerves and temper to the very marrow of my spine. I was a-saying to myself as I came along that Mrs. must have been very onlucky in her girls if she has to teach them how to wash up dishes. I always thought that was one of the things that came kinda natural to every cook. Mrs. Experience goes to prove that the wrong way of doing this must come natural to the class mentioned, and that nature is mighty in woman. The fact that the right way is not to pile unrinsed dishes and plates in a big pan with a loose bit of soap on top and pour lukewarm water over all, then with a bit of rag to splash said water over each separately, and make another pile of them upon the kitchen table, until the last is drawn, reeking with liquid grease, sticky and streaming, from the now filthy puddle of diluted swill, then to rub them lightly and leisurely with one towel, be they many or few, is as difficult of comprehension to the scullery mind as would be a familiar lecture upon the pons asinorum. Yet the right and only neat method is so simple and easy. Rinse the greasy plates, and whatever is sticky with sugar or other sweet, in hot water, and transfer to a larger pan of very hot. Wash glass first, next silver, then china, one article at a time, although you may put several in the pan. Have a mop with a handle, rub upon the soap, over which the water should have been poured, until you have strong suds. There is a little implement made by the Dover Stamping Company, a cup of tinned wire called a soap shaker, that greatly facilitates this process of suds making, without waste of soap. Wash both sides of plate and saucer, and wipe before putting it out of your hand. Draining leaves streaks which can be felt by sensitive fingertips, if not seen. If china is rough to the touch, it is dirty. Hot, clean suds, a dry, clean towel, and quick wiping leave it bright and shining. Roll your glasses around in the water, filling them as soon as they touch it, and you need never crack one. A lady did once explain the dinginess of her goblets to me by saying that she was afraid to put them in hot water. It rots glass and makes it so tender. I prefer to have them a little cloudy. This is literally true, that she said it, I mean. Certainly not that a year's soak in hot water could make glass tender. Washing windows. Dissolve a little washing soda in the water if the glass is very dim with smoke or dirt. Do not let it run on the sash, but wash each pane with old flannel. Dry quickly with a soft, clean towel, wiping the corners with especial care. Polish with chamois skin or newspapers rubbed soft between the hands. To clean carpets. Sprinkle the carpet with tea leaves, sweep well, then use soap and soft warm water for the grease and dirt spots. This freshens up old carpets marvelously. Rub the wet spots dry with a clean cloth. To clean paint. Scour with a flat brush, less harsh than that used for floors, using warm, soft suds. Before it dries, wash off with old flannel dipped in clean cold water, and wipe dry with a linen towel or cloth. Go through the whole process quickly, that the water may not dry upon and streak the paint. To keep woolens. Beat out all the dust and sun for a day. Shake very hard, fold neatly in pin, or, what is better, sew up closely in muslin or linen cloths, putting a small lump of gum camphor in the center of each bundle. Wrap newspapers about all, pinning so as to exclude dust and insects. These are really all the precautions necessary for the safety even of furs, if they are strictly obeyed. But you may set moths at defiance if you can, In addition to these, secure, as a packing case, a whiskey or alcohol barrel, but lately emptied, and still strongly scented by the liquor. Have a close head and fit it in neatly. Set away in the garret, and think no more of your treasures until next winter. To wash doubtful calicoes. Put a teaspoonful of sugar of lead in a pailful of water, and soak 15 minutes before washing. To clean a cloth coat. Rub soap upon the wristbands and collar. Dip them in boiling hot suds, and scrub with a stiff clean brush. Treat the grease and dirt spots in the same way. Change the suds for clean and hot as it gets dirty. Wet and brush the whole coat the right way of the cloth with fresh suds. When you have scoured out the spots, adding 3 or 4 tablespoonfuls of alcohol to the water. Stretch the sleeves, pocket holes, wristbands, and collar into shape, folding the sleeves as if they have been ironed, also the collar. Lay upon a clean cloth, spread upon the table or floor, and let it get perfectly dry in the shade, turning over 3 or 4 times without disturbing the folds. To clean silk. To remove grease spots. Scrape Venetian or French chalk fine, moisten to a stiff paste with soap suds, make it into flat cakes by pressing between 2 boards, and dry in the sun or oven. Keep these for use. When you need them, scrape one to powder and cover the spot with it, laying the silk upon a fine clean linen or cotton cloth. Lay 2 or 3 folds of tissue paper upon the chalk, and press it with a hot iron for a minute or more, taking care it does not touch the silk. Raise the paper and scrape off the grease with the chalk. Split a visiting card and rub the place where the spot was, with the inside to restore the luster. The silk should be pressed on the wrong side. If the spot be discovered at once, simply rub the wrong side hard with powdered French chalk, and leave it to wear off. To wash silk, mix together 2 cups cold water, 1 tablespoonful honey, 1 tablespoonful soft soap, 1 wineglass alcohol. Shake up well. Lay the silk, a breadth at a time, on a table, and sponge both sides with this, rubbing it well in. Shake it about well and up and down in a tub of cold water. Flap it as dry as you can, but do not wring it. Hang it by the edges, not the middle, until fit to iron. Iron on the wrong side while it is very damp. Black and dark or sober colored silks may be successfully treated in this way. To smooth wrinkled silk. Sponge on the right side with very weak gum Arabic water, and iron on the wrong side. To renew wrinkled crepe. Stretch over a basin of boiling water, hold it smooth but not tight over the spot, and shifting as the steam fairly penetrates it. Fold, while damp, in the original creases, and lay under a heavy book or board to dry. It will look almost as well as new. To restore the pile of velvet. If but slightly pressed, treat as you would crepe. Steam on the right side until heated through. If very badly crushed, wet on the wrong side. Let an assistant hold a hot iron, bottom upward, and pass the wet side of the velvet slowly over the flat surface, a sort of upside-down ironing. When the steam rises thickly through to the right side, it will raise the pile with it. Dry without handling. To curl tumbled feathers. Hold over the heated top of the range or stove, not near enough to burn. Withdraw, shake them out, and hold them over it again until curled. To clean straw matting. Wash with a cloth dipped in clean salt and water, then wipe dry at once. This prevents it from turning yellow. To wash lawn or thin muslin. Boil 2 quarts of wheat bran in 6 quarts or more of water, half an hour. Strain through a coarse towel, and mix in the water in which the muslin is to be washed. Use no soap if you can help it, and no starch. Rinse lightly in fair water. This preparation both cleanses and stiffens the lawn. If you can conveniently, take out all the gathers. The skirt should always be ripped from the waist. To wash woolens. Wash in clean hot soap suds. Rinse out in clear hot water, and shake out the wet without passing through the wringer. Worsted dress goods should never be wrung when washed. To wash white lace edging. Have a quart bottle covered with linen, stitched smoothly to fit the shape. Begin at the bottom and wind the lace about it, basting fast at both edges, even the minutest point to the linen. Wash on the bottle, soaping it well. Rinse by plunging in a pail of fair water, and boil as you would a white handkerchief, bottle and all. Set in the hot sun to dry. When quite dry, clip the basting threads and use the lace without ironing. If neatly basted on, it will look nearly as well as new, if not quite. Black lace. 1/2 cup rain water or very soft spring water. 1 teaspoonful borax. 1 tablespoonful spirits of wine. Squeeze the tumbled rusty lace through this 4 times, then rinse in a cup of hot water in which a black kid glove has been boiled. Pull out the edges of the lace until almost dry, then press for 2 days between the leaves of a heavy book. To sponge black worsted dresses. Sponge on the right side with a strong tea made of fig leaves, and iron on the wrong. This process restores luster and crispness to alpaca, bombazine, etc. To clean very dirty black dresses. 2 parts soft water to 1 part alcohol, or if there be paint spots upon the stuff, spirits turpentine. Soap a sponge well, dip in the mixture and rub, a breadth at a time, on both sides, stretching it upon a table. Iron on the wrong side, or that which is to be inside when the stuff is made up. Sponge off with fair water, hot but not scalding, before you iron. Iron while damp. To remove stains from marble. Make a mortar of unslacked lime and very strong lye. Cover the spot thickly with it and leave it on for 6 weeks. Wash it off perfectly clean, and rub hard with a brush dipped in a lather of soap and water. Polish with a smooth, hard brush. Iron mold is as nearly ineradicable as it is possible for stain to be. Try moistening the part injured with ink, and while this is wet, rub in muriatic acid diluted with 5 times its weight of water. I have heard that the old and new stain can sometimes be removed together by this operation. Mildew is likewise obstinate. If anything will extract it, it is lemon juice mixed with an equal weight of salt, powdered starch, and soft soap. Rub on thickly and lay upon the grass in the hot sun, renewing the application 2 or 3 times a day until the spot fades or comes out. I have also used salt wet with tomato juice, often renewed, laying the article stained upon the grass. Sometimes the stain was taken out, sometimes not. Ink. While the stains are yet wet upon the carpet, sponge them with skim milk thoroughly. Then wash out the milk with a clean sponge dipped again and again in fair water, cold. Exchange this presently for warm. Then rub dry with a cloth. If the stain is upon any article of clothing, or table or bed linen, wash in the milk well, afterward in the water. Dry ink stains can be removed from white cloth by oxalic acid, or lemon juice and salt. Stains of acids and alkalis. Treat acid stains with hartshorn, alkaline with acids. For instance, if the color be taken out of cloth by whitewash, wash with strong vinegar. Grease spots. 1 quart boiling water, 1 ounce pulverized borax, 1/2 ounce of gum camphor. Shake up well and bottle. It is excellent for removing grease spots from woolens. Cure for burns. 1/3 part linseed oil, 2/3 lime water. Shake up well. Apply and wrap in soft linen. Until you can procure this, keep the part covered with wood soot, mixed to a soft paste with lard, or, if you have not these, with common molasses. To stop the flow of blood. Bind the cut with cobwebs and brown sugar, pressed on like lint, or, if you cannot procure these, with the fine dust of tea. When the blood ceases to flow, apply laudanum. To relieve asthma. Soak blotting or tissue paper in strong saltpeter water. Dry and burn at night in your bedroom. I know this to be an excellent prescription. Antidotes to poison. For any poison, swallow instantly a glass of cold water with a heaping teaspoonful of common salt and 1 of ground mustard stirred in. This is a speedy emetic. When it has acted, swallow the whites of 2 raw eggs. If you have taken corrosive sublimate, take half a dozen raw eggs besides the emetic. If laudanum, a cup of very strong coffee. If arsenic, first the emetic, then half a cup of sweet oil or melted lard. Cologne water, fine, No. 1. 1 dram oil lavender, 1 dram oil bergamot, 2 dram oil lemon, 2 dram oil rosemary, 50 drops tincture of musk, 8 drops oil of cinnamon, 8 drops oil of cloves, 1 pint of alcohol. Cologne water, No. 2. 60 drops oil of lavender, 60 drops oil of bergamot, 60 drops oil of lemon, 60 drops orange flower water, 1 pint of alcohol. Cork and shake well. Hard soap. 6 pounds washing soda, 3 pounds unslaked lime. Pour on 4 gallons boiling water. Let it stand until perfectly clear, then drain off. Put in 6 pounds clean fat. Boil until it begins to harden, about 2 hours, stirring most of the time. While boiling, thin with 2 gallons of cold water, which you have poured on the alkaline mixture after draining off the 4 gallons. This must also settle clear before it is drawn off. Add it when there is danger of boiling over. Try the thickness by cooling a little on a plate. Put in a handful of salt just before taking from the fire. Wet a tub to prevent sticking. Turn in the soap and let it stand until solid. Cut into bars, put on a board, and let it dry. This will make about 40 pounds of nice soap, much better for washing. When it has dried out for 2 or 3 months, then yellow turpentine soap. Bar soap. Buy a box at a time, cut into small squares, and lay upon the garret floor to dry for several weeks before it is used. Soft soap. 10 pounds grease, 6 pounds soda, washing, 8 gallons hot water. Let it stand for several days until the grease is eaten up. If too thick, add more water. Stir every day. If wood ashes are used instead of soda, boil the mixture. End of section 55. End of Common Sense in the Household, a Manual of Practical Housewifery by Marion Harland.